Hello, and welcome to the Deep Rest Science. Get comfortable, let your breathing slow. Tonight, we walk quietly beside the tiger, through forests wrapped in twilight, into the gentle rhythm of sleep. Our first fact is a simple one, and perhaps it will surprise you. Tigers sleep 18 to 20 hours per day. Yes, these magnificent hunters, these powerful beings, spend most of their lives in rest, just like you're about to do now. They find a shaded spot beneath the canopy or beside cool water, and they simply let go. Their massive bodies relax completely. There's no rush, no urgency, just the long, slow pull of sleep. Hour after hour, they understand something we often forget, that rest is natural, rest is necessary, and there is no shame in surrendering to it. So as you lie here now, think of the tiger, already deep in sleep somewhere far away. You're doing exactly what nature intended. You can rest and still be alive. You can be still and still be working, somewhere deep inside. Let that idea settle. Let it soften the edges of your own wakefulness. And now, let yourself drift downward. If this calm is helping you, you can quietly like the video or subscribe. It helps these gentle documentaries reach more tired minds, one peaceful night at a time. Now, let the story deepen. Tigers are what we call crepuscular. That's a beautiful word, isn't it? Crepuscular. It means they're most active during twilight hours, at dawn and at dusk, when the world is caught between darkness and light, when everything softens, the harsh brightness of day fades away, the deep mystery of night hasn't quite arrived. And in that in-between time, the tiger moves. But even then, they don't hurry. They're patient. They wait for exactly the right moment. The rest of the time, they're resting, waiting, breathing, being still. Just like you are now. You are inside that layered quiet now. Held, blanketed. There's nothing you need to do. Now when tigers do move through the darkness, they see the world in a way we cannot imagine. Their night vision is 6 times better than ours. 6 times. While we would stumble and strain to see, the tiger sees clearly every leaf, every shadow, every small movement in the underbrush. The night is not frightening to them. It's simply another version of home, another place to be. And maybe that can comfort you tonight, knowing that darkness is just another kind of light, if you have the right eyes to see it. This remarkable vision comes from something called the tapetum lucidum. Let that phrase roll over you, tapetum lucidum. It's a reflective layer behind the tiger's retina, a mirror of sorts, that amplifies even the faintest light. When light enters the eye, it bounces back through the retina a second time. Everything is seen twice, in a way. Everything is illuminated. This is why a tiger's eyes glow when caught in light at night. They're not generating light themselves, they're simply reflecting what's already there, amplifying the smallest glimmer into something they can use. Perhaps there's something we can learn from that, to take the smallest bit of peace, the faintest calm, and let it reflect back through us, amplified, doubled, until we're surrounded by it. Tigers also hear sounds that we cannot. Their ears detect infrasound, frequencies below the range of human hearing. These are deep sounds, rumbling sounds, the kind that move through the earth and through the air without us ever knowing they're there. Earthquakes produce infrasound, ocean waves, even the wind, moving through canyons, and tigers hear all of it. They're connected to a conversation happening all around us, constantly, that we're simply not aware of. It's humbling, isn't it, to realize how much is happening that we don't perceive, and perhaps that's another invitation to let go. To accept that we don't need to understand everything, we don't need to hear everything, we can simply be. Tigers use this infrasound to communicate across vast distances in the forest. They send low-frequency calls through the trees, through the ground itself, messages traveling kilometers to other tigers. I am here. This is my territory. Stay away, or sometimes come closer. All in frequencies we cannot hear, a secret language, a hidden world. While we sleep, These conversations are happening. The forest is never truly silent. It's simply that we're not listening on the right frequency. And that's all right. You don't need to listen to anything right now. You can let it all fade. When a tiger does vocalize in a range we can hear, the sound is extraordinary. A tiger's roar can be heard for up to 3 kilometers away. Imagine that. 3 kilometers. The sound cuts through the forest, through darkness, through rain. It's a declaration, an announcement. I am here. I am powerful. I am alive. But even that mighty roar, eventually, fades to silence. Even the tiger's greatest expression of power eventually dissolves into the quiet. Everything returns to stillness. Everything eventually rests. Here's something remarkable. Some researchers believe that tigers can embed infrasonic frequencies within their roars, sounds so low and so powerful that they can cause a momentary paralysis in their prey, a freezing, a stopping of all movement. The prey simply stands still, caught not by fear exactly, but by the physical vibration moving through their body. It's almost like the tiger's voice reaches out and says, "Be still now," and the world obeys. Tonight, maybe you can imagine that same invitation, not from a predator, but from the universe itself. Be still now. Let everything stop. There's nowhere you need to go, nothing you need to do, just stillness. But tigers don't only roar, they have a sound called chuffing, a soft, breathy, rhythmic greeting. It's a friendly sound, non-threatening. When tigers chuff at each other, it means, I see you. You're safe with me. We're at peace. It's a sound of recognition and gentleness. These powerful creatures, capable of such force, also have this tender way of saying hello, of acknowledging one another without aggression. Just a soft breath, a gentle rhythm. Maybe you can find your own version of that now. A soft breath, a gentle rhythm, letting your body know that it's safe, that you're at peace. Tigers have 4 main types of vocalizations. The roar, which we've mentioned, used for long-distance communication and territorial claims. The chuff, that gentle greeting. The moan, which is a softer, more intimate sound, often used between a mother and her cubs, or between tigers who know each other well. And finally, the snarl or hiss, sounds of warning, of boundaries being set. But even those are rarely used. Most of the time, the tiger is simply silent, moving through the world without announcement, present but quiet. And as we close this first part of our journey, maybe that's the invitation, to be like the tiger and rest, present, quiet, breathing slowly, letting the world continue without needing to announce yourself within it. You're here, you're safe, and you can sleep now, just like the tiger sleeps 18 to 20 hours a day, trusting in the rhythm of nature. Let your breathing deepen. We continue now into the mystery of the tiger's body. A body that vanishes, a body that whispers, a body built for silence. Here is something that seems impossible at first. The tiger's brilliant orange fur, so vivid to our eyes, so striking, actually serves as camouflage. How can this be? How can something so bright disappear? The answer lies not in what the tiger sees, but in what its prey sees. Most of the animals a tiger hunts are colorblind. Deer, wild boar, buffalo. To them, the world appears in shades of blue and green and gray. They don't see orange. They don't see that burning sunset color. To them, the tiger is simply green, brown, shadow. The orange fur blends perfectly into the golden grasses, the dappled forest light, the rust-colored undergrowth. What appears so visible to us is invisible to those who need to see it most. It's a reminder, perhaps, that we're all seen differently by different eyes. What you think is obvious about yourself might be invisible to others. What you think is hidden might be perfectly clear, and maybe that's all right. Maybe we don't need to control how we're perceived. We can simply be, and trust that we're exactly as visible or invisible as we need to be. The tiger itself has dichromatic vision. This means they see in 2 primary color channels, unlike our 3. They see blues and greens quite well, but reds and oranges appear differently to them, more muted, more earth-toned. So the tiger, in a strange twist, probably doesn't see its own fur the way we do. It doesn't see itself as bright orange. It sees something more subtle, more integrated with the forest. Perhaps there's something beautiful in that, in not seeing yourself the way others see you, in not knowing your own striking nature, in simply being who you are without the weight of that knowledge. Here's something that reaches deeper than fur. Even beneath the surface, if the fur were to vanish, the pattern remains. It is written into the skin itself. The pigmentation goes all the way through. The stripes are not decoration. They are not clothing that can be removed. They are fundamental. They are who the tiger is, all the way down. Every tiger carries this pattern in its very flesh, and maybe you carry your patterns too, the things that make you who you are, not surface things, deep things, things that can't be stripped away, things that are simply, essentially, you. And tonight, you can rest in that, in knowing that who you are goes deeper than what anyone can see. On the back of a tiger's ears, there are white spots ringed with black. From behind, they look like eyes, false eyes, watching. When a tiger walks away, something still seems to be watching you. These eye spots serve many purposes. They may startle predators who might attack from behind. They may help tiger cubs follow their mother through dense vegetation. Two bright spots to track. But there's also something haunting about them. The suggestion that the tiger is always watching, always aware, even when it seems to have turned away. Perhaps that's true for all of us. Some part of us is always watching, always aware, even as we drift towards sleep. Some gentle awareness remains, witnessing, observing, but not judging, not controlling, just noticing, and that's all right. You can let that quiet observer rest too. A tiger's whiskers are extraordinary instruments. They don't just touch, they sense airflow. They detect the slightest change in pressure, in movement, in the space around the tiger's face. When a tiger moves through tall grass in complete darkness, the whiskers tell it exactly where everything is. They map the world through absence and presence, through disturbance in the air. The tiger knows what's near without seeing, without touching, just by feeling the way air moves around objects. Imagine having that sensitivity, that awareness, but also imagine how overwhelming it might be to feel everything, every change, every movement. Sometimes it's a gift to have our senses dulled, to not feel quite so much, to let some things pass by unnoticed. And as you rest now, you can let your own sensitivity soften. You don't need to notice everything. You don't need to track every thought, every sensation. You can let it all blur together into soft, undifferentiated peace. The pads on a tiger's feet are remarkably soft, thick, cushioned, almost tender. They're built to silence every step. When a tiger walks, even its full weight, hundreds of pounds, makes almost no sound. The pads compress, they absorb, they muffle. Each step is a whisper. Each movement is a secret kept from the earth. The tiger moves through the world as if it's floating, as if gravity has softened its grip. Tonight, let yourself feel that weightless, that quiet, as if you're barely touching the surface you're resting on, as if you could drift, as if you're already half in the dream world, where weight doesn't matter and sound doesn't carry. And then there are the claws, retractable, hidden. Most of the time when a tiger walks, the claws are pulled back into sheaths in the paws. They don't click against stone, they don't scratch against earth. They're simply away, waiting. Only when needed do they extend, only in that crucial moment. The rest of the time, they're invisible. This is part of how the tiger moves in silence. No claws dragging, no scraping, just soft pads meeting the ground, gentle and soundless. There's wisdom in knowing when to extend and when to retract, when to show your sharp edges and when to keep them hidden. The tiger doesn't walk around with claws out, ready for conflict at every moment. It moves through the world, soft-pawed, peaceful, until the situation requires otherwise, and even then, it's not anger, it's simply necessity. The tiger doesn't hold tension in its body when it's not needed. Maybe you can feel that now. The places in your body where you're holding something extended, some tension, some readiness, and maybe you can let it retract, pull it back, rest it. You don't need it right now. A tiger's tail is an entire language. Long, heavy, expressive. When a tiger is calm, the tail hangs low, relaxed, perhaps with a gentle curve at the end. When curious or focused, the tail lifts slightly, the tip curling. When agitated, the tail begins to swish back and forth, faster and faster. And when a tiger is about to pounce, the tail often stiffens, held out for balance. Other tigers can read this language from far away. They know the mood, they know the intention, all from watching the tail. We have our own body language too, don't we? Our own tells. The way we hold tension in our shoulders, the way our breath changes, the way our hands curl or relax. And right now, your body is speaking its own language. Perhaps it's saying, I'm ready, I'm tired, I want to rest. Listen to that language, trust it. Hear something tender. When a mother tiger senses danger and her cubs are nearby, she flattens her ears back against her head. It's a signal, a warning, and the cubs know immediately to be still, to be silent, to freeze where they are. No sound is needed, just that subtle change. Ears forward means safety, ears back means hide. And the cubs trust this completely. They don't question, they don't debate. They simply respond to the signal and stay safe. Maybe there's a signal your own body is giving you right now, a small, subtle thing, a heaviness in your eyelids, a softness in your muscles, a slowing of your thoughts. That's your signal, your body telling you it's time. Time to stop resisting, time to let go, time to trust that you're safe here and you can finally fully rest. The tiger's body is a ghost made of muscle, invisible in plain sight, silent despite its weight, aware of everything, yet moving in peace. And tonight you can borrow that ghost-like quality. You can feel yourself becoming lighter, less defined, less solid, drifting at the edges, neither fully here nor fully in sleep, somewhere in between, somewhere soft, somewhere safe. The invisible body, the quiet body, the body that trusts its own signals and knows when to rest. Let yourself become invisible too. Let yourself dissolve into the darkness. You don't need to be seen right now. You don't need to be anywhere. You can simply vanish into sleep, like a tiger slipping into tall grass, orange fur turning to shadow, stripes blending with filtered light, until there's nothing left to see. Just breathe. Just peace. Breathe slowly now. We turn to the tiger's power. But even in strength, there is stillness. Even in force, there is calm. Let these facts wash over you like distant thunder. Present, but far away. A tiger's bite is estimated to generate a crushing force of over 1,000 pounds per square inch. 1,050. It's almost impossible to imagine that kind of pressure. Enough to crush bone, enough to pierce the thickest hide, enough to end things quickly, mercifully. But here's what's interesting. The tiger doesn't use this force constantly. It's not always clenched. Most of the time, the jaw is relaxed, resting. The power is there, dormant, waiting, but not expressed. The tiger carries this incredible force through the world gently, mouth closed, jaw loose, breathing easy. You carry your own strength, don't you? Your own capacity, but you don't have to use it every moment. You don't have to stay clenched. You can let your jaw relax right now. Unclench your teeth if they're touching. Let your tongue rest soft in your mouth. Let all that potential power simply rest. The tiger's skull is a masterpiece of engineering. Every curve, every angle, every ridge is designed to maximize the leverage of that bite. The shape of the jaw, the placement of the hinge, the way the bones interlock, all of it focuses force into a single point. Maximum effect with minimal effort. The tiger doesn't have to work hard to generate that crushing bite. The architecture does most of the work. The structure itself is the strength. Perhaps you're built that way too. Perhaps your own structure, your own foundation is stronger than you realize. You don't have to force everything. You don't have to muscle through. Sometimes the design itself carries you, the way you're built, the way you've always been. Trust that structure tonight. Trust that you're supported even when you let go. On top of the tiger's skull runs a ridge of bone called the sagittal crest. It's like a raised spine running along the top of the head. This crest serves as an anchor point for the massive jaw muscles. The temporalis muscles attach here, fanning out across the skull. The higher the crest, the more surface area for muscle attachment. The more muscle, the more force. It's elegant, really. A simple ridge of bone creating the foundation for immense power. Sometimes the smallest structures support the greatest strength. A thin line of bone, a quiet foundation. You don't need to be large to be strong. You don't need to be obvious to be essential. Here's something remarkable. The nerves surrounding the roots of a tiger's canine teeth are exceptionally sensitive, acting as precise pressure sensors. They can feel resistance. They can detect exactly how much force is needed and where. When a tiger bites into prey, it's not just crushing blindly. It's reading, sensing, finding the exact spot where the least force will accomplish what's needed. The spine, the throat, the precise location, and this neural feedback tells the tiger exactly when they have found the precise location. The bite is not violent chaos, it's precision guided by sensation. Even in power there is sensitivity. Even in force, there is listening. The tiger pays attention, feels, responds. It doesn't override its senses, it trusts them. The tiger's incisors, those small teeth at the front, are arranged in a straight line, perfectly aligned. They're designed for precision work, for gripping, for holding, for making careful adjustments. While the canines deliver force, the incisors deliver control. They work together, power and precision, strength and delicacy. The tiger needs both. One without the other would be useless. You contain these opposites too, the ability to be strong and the ability to be gentle, the capacity for force and the capacity for careful tenderness. You don't have to choose. You can be both. And right now, you can let the gentle side lead, the precise, careful, controlled side, the side that knows how to be soft. A tiger's tongue is covered in tiny keratin barbs, like hooks, all pointing backward toward the throat. When a tiger licks, it doesn't just wet the surface. It pulls, it scrapes, it removes. These barbs can strip meat from bone. They can clean a kill. They can groom fur so thoroughly that every loose hair is pulled away. The tongue is both a tool and a weapon, but also something more. Mother tigers use this rough tongue to clean their cubs, to stimulate their breathing, to show affection. The same surface that can strip flesh can also give comfort. Everything in the tiger serves multiple purposes. Nothing is only one thing. And maybe that's true for you as well. The parts of yourself you think are too rough, too sharp, too much, maybe they also have tender uses. Maybe they also know how to care. Inside the tiger's body, the intestines are short, much shorter than an herbivore's. A carnivore doesn't need the long, complex digestive system required to break down plant matter. The tiger's digestive tract is direct, efficient, built for meat, which is easier to process. Food moves through quickly. The system does exactly what it needs to do and nothing more. No excess, no complication. There's something peaceful about simplicity, about systems that don't overcomplicate, about doing what's needed and nothing more. Maybe your thoughts can be like that tonight. Simple, direct, not winding through endless loops and complications, just simple. The tiger's saliva is interesting. It lubricates food, makes it easier to swallow, but it doesn't begin digestion the way ours does. There are no enzymes breaking down starches. The saliva's job is simply to smooth the way, to ease passage, to help things move. That's all. Performed perfectly. Not everything needs to be transformative. Sometimes it's enough to simply ease the way, to make things a little smoother, a little gentler. You don't have to change everything tonight. You just have to let things move through, let thoughts pass, let tension slide away, lubricate the process with breathe, with softness, with permission to let go. A tiger's muscles are a masterpiece of latent energy. While built for explosive bursts of speed, they also carry a heavy, steady endurance for the long miles of walking through the deep forest. The ability to move steadily, strongly, for as long as needed, to walk for miles, to drag heavy weight, to maintain effort without burning out. The tiger is not built for the sprint. It's built for the patient, powerful, persistent application of force over time. You have that in you too. Endurance, the ability to keep going, but endurance also means knowing when to rest. The slow twitch muscles recover, they restore, and tonight is your restoration. Tonight is when the muscle rebuilds, when the fibers repair, when strength returns through stillness. The forelimbs of a tiger are extraordinarily muscled, massive, the shoulders, the legs, the paws, all heavy with muscle. This is where much of the tiger's power resides. When a tiger strikes, it's not just the bite, it's the weight of those forelimbs coming down, the ability to pin, to hold, to control. A tiger can use its front legs to pull down prey much larger than itself. The muscles bunch and release, contract and extend, force channeled through perfect biomechanics. But right now those muscles are at rest. Somewhere in the world, a tiger lies with its massive forelimbs stretched out, completely relaxed. All that power, dormant, all that potential, sleeping, and that's okay. That's natural. Power doesn't need to be constantly displayed, it can rest. A tiger can drag prey weighing 500 to 600 kilograms. That's over half a ton. Think about that. An animal that might weigh 200 kilograms itself, pulling something 3 times its own weight, through undergrowth, uphill, to a safe place. The strength required is almost beyond comprehension, and let the tiger does it regularly, calmly. It's simply what's needed, so it's done. You have your own version of this. Times when you've carried more than seemed possible, when you've moved forward with weight you didn't think you could bear, and you did it. Maybe not easily, maybe not gracefully, but you did it. And tonight you can put all of that down. Whatever you've been dragging, you can leave it, just for now, just for these hours. It will be there tomorrow if you need to pick it up again. But right now, let yourself be weightless. Tigers can jump 30 feet horizontally, 30 feet from a standstill. The hind legs compress, load, and then release all that stored energy in an instant. The body becomes a projectile, airborne, flying, and then landing controlled, ready. The power in those hind legs is coiled, waiting, ready to launch. But again, most of the time, that power is simply potential. The tiger walks, sits, lies down. The ability to explode forward exists, but it's not constantly expressed. The legs rest, the muscles wait, and there's no anxiety in that waiting, no urgency, just readiness without tension. You can be ready without being tense. You can have capacity without using it. You can simply be. Here's something that speaks to how fundamentally powerful the tiger's body is. The biological architecture of their power is so fundamental that the muscle fibers can remain reactive, even as the spark of life fades into absolute stillness. The power is so deeply embedded in the tissue, in the very structure of the muscle fibers, that it persists even when life has left. It's not will, it's not consciousness, it's just the nature of what was built, strength that goes beyond intention, strength that simply is. There are things in you that are just as fundamental, just as built in, things that don't require your effort or your consciousness. Your heart beats without you telling it to, your lungs breathe, your body heals, your mind dreams. These things happen because they're built into who you are. And tonight you can trust those automatic processes. You don't have to manage everything. Your body knows what to do. The tiger is engineered to hunt. Every part of it serves that purpose. The crushing bite, the sensing teeth, the powerful limbs, the explosive jump, all of it calibrated for survival. And yet most of the time, the tiger is not hunting. Most of the time, it's resting, sleeping, lying in shade, breathing slowly. Even a body built for intensity spends most of its time in peace. You are built for your own kind of intensity, your own challenges, your own struggles, but you too are allowed to rest, to let all of that engineering lie dormant, to simply be a body, breathing, warm, still, power without noise, strength without tension, capacity without action. Rest now, like the tiger rests, powerful and peaceful, strong and still. Let yourself drift into that paradox, into that perfect balance, where you are both capable and quiet, both strong and soft. Sleep is not weakness. Sleep is the foundation of all strength. Let your breathing deepen further now. We travel with the tiger across landscapes, through water, through snow, through heat. The tiger adapts. The tiger belongs everywhere, and so do you. Wherever you are right now, you belong. Here is something unexpected. Tigers have partially webbed toes. Between each digit, there's a thin membrane of skin. Not as pronounced as a duck's foot, but there, present, subtle. Most people don't know this. They picture tiger paws as purely terrestrial, built for Earth. But the webbing tells a different story. It speaks of water, of currents, of the tiger's relationship with rivers and lakes and the spaces between land and sea. Even the parts of yourself you think are built for one purpose often have hidden adaptations, hidden capacities. You contain more possibilities than you realize, more ways of moving through the world. And tigers do love water. Unlike most cats who avoid it, tigers seek it out. On hot days, they wade into rivers. They submerge themselves completely, sometimes with only their head above the surface. They lie in water for hours, cooling, soaking, playing even. There's joy in it. A tiger in water is a tiger at peace, the forest's greatest predator, floating, relaxed, letting the current move around them. Maybe you have your own version of water, something that cools you, something you can sink into, something that holds you without effort. Maybe it's a bath, maybe it's music, maybe it's this moment right now, sinking into sleep. Let yourself be held. When tigers swim, they use what we might call a doggy paddle, all four legs moving in steady rhythm, head up, breathing easy. It's not elegant in the way a dolphin moves, but it's effective, steady. The tiger doesn't fight the water, doesn't thrash, just consistent, patient movement, stroke after stroke. The water supports them. They trust it. You can trust what supports you too. You don't have to fight. You don't have to prove anything. Just steady, gentle movement, or no movement at all. Just floating, just being held. Tigers possess an extraordinary ratio of muscle to fat. While their dense bodies might seem heavy, their massive lung capacity and the way they distribute their weight allows them to remain surprisingly buoyant, trusting the water to carry them. The dense muscle is offset by air in the lungs, by the structure of their bones, by the way their body displaces water. They're naturally buoyant. They don't have to work hard to stay on the surface. The water wants to hold them up. Their body and the water find an easy equilibrium. Perhaps you're more buoyant than you think. Perhaps what feels like it should sink you actually helps you float. Perhaps you don't have to work as hard as you believe to stay afloat. Perhaps you're already being held, and you just need to notice it. Tigers can swim several kilometers at a time. Several kilometers. That's not a quick crossing. That's a journey. Through currents, through changing depths, sometimes between islands, sometimes just because the other shore is where they want to be. They commit to the swim, and they go, steady, unhurried, trusting their body to carry them all the way. You've made long journeys too. Not all of them were physical. Some were emotional, some were mental, but you've crossed distances that seemed impossible at the start. And somehow you made it. Stroke by stroke, breathe by breathe, you're still here. Sometimes tigers hunt from the water. They'll submerge in a river, waiting, just their eyes and ears above the surface, crocodile still. And when prey comes to drink unaware, the tiger explodes upward, water cascading, the element of complete surprise. The prey never expected danger from that direction, never thought to look at the water as anything but water. The world is full of surprises, full of things appearing from unexpected directions. But tonight you don't have to be on guard, you don't have to watch the water, you can let yourself be undefended, soft, open, nothing is hunting you here, you're safe. There's a principle in biology called Bergmann's rule. It observes that animals of the same species tend to be larger in colder climates and smaller in warmer ones. This is true for tigers. The Siberian tiger living in snow and ice can weigh 600 pounds or more, massive, while tigers in tropical regions might weigh 300 pounds, still formidable, but nearly half the size. The cold demands bulk, more mass to retain heat. The body adapts to what the environment requires. You adapt too, to your circumstances, to your climate, literal and metaphorical. You become what you need to be to survive where you are. And that's not failure, that's not compromise, that's wisdom, that's your body being intelligent. Scientists have found specific genes in Siberian tigers that help them survive the brutal cold. genes called PRKG1 and FOXO1. These genes influence how the body regulates energy, how it responds to low temperatures, how it manages resources when food is scarce and warmth is precious. The tigers didn't choose these genes, they inherited them. They were given exactly what they needed to survive in their world. Maybe you were given what you needed too. Not everything you wish you had, perhaps, but what you needed. The exact configuration of traits and tendencies and capacities that would let you survive your particular climate. And maybe that's enough. Maybe you're already perfectly suited to your own life, even when it doesn't feel that way. In cold regions, tigers develop thick fur, dense, layered. In the frozen north, the Siberian tiger carries a thicker layer of subcutaneous fat and a denser coat, a double insulation built to withstand the silent sub-zero winds. Insulation against the frozen world. The same animal that can swim in tropical rivers can also walk through Siberian blizzards. -40 degrees, wind that cuts, snow that blinds, and the tiger moves through it, warm inside its own body, protected. The cold is there, but it doesn't reach the core. You have your own insulation, your own ways of protecting your core when the world is harsh. Sometimes it's actual people, friends, family. Sometimes it's practices, rituals, small comforts. Sometimes it's just your own resilience, developed over years of weathering storms. That insulation is there. Trust it tonight. On the island of Sumatra, tigers are smaller. This is called island dwarfism. When a species lives on an island with limited resources, limited space, limited prey, natural selection favors smaller individuals. They need less food, less territory. They can survive where larger animals would starve. The Sumatran tiger is perfectly calibrated to its island world, not weaker, not lesser, just adapted, right-sized for its reality. Sometimes smaller is better. Sometimes less is exactly enough. You don't have to be the biggest version of yourself. You don't have to maximize everything. You can be right-sized for your life, for this moment, for this day. And that's not just okay, it's perfect. There's a gene called ADH7 that some tigers carry. It helps them conserve energy. It makes their metabolism more efficient, allowing them to survive on less food, to go longer between meals, to extract more from what they consume. It's an energy-saving adaptation. The body learning to do more with less, to waste nothing, to be efficient. Your body knows how to conserve energy too. Right now, it's redirecting resources away from movement, away from digestion, away from alertness. It's sending everything toward restoration, toward healing, toward the deep work of sleep. It knows what to prioritize. It knows what can wait, and you can trust that prioritization. You can let your body do what it knows how to do. The tiger exists across an extraordinary range of habitats, from steaming jungles to frozen forests, from sea level to mountain peaks, from islands to continents, water and snow and fire, metaphorically speaking, and everywhere the tiger finds a way. The body changes, the behavior shifts, but the essential tiger remains, adaptable but unchanged at its core. You've lived in different seasons of your life, different climates, different circumstances, and you've adapted to each one. You've changed what needed to change, but something in you remains, some essential you that has walked through all of it. That has grown larger when needed and smaller when necessary. That has insulated itself against cold and cooled itself in heat. That essential self is still here, beneath all the adaptations, beneath all the changes, constant, continuous, whole. And tonight, that self can rest. In whatever climate you find yourself, in whatever season, in whatever temperature or terrain, you can rest. The tiger rests in snow. The tiger rests in water. The tiger rests in jungle heat. Rest is universal. Rest is adaptation neutral. No matter what you've had to become to survive, you can still close your eyes and sleep. The world is vast. The tiger's range is enormous. But right now, all that matters is this small space, this bed, this pillow, this breathe. You don't have to think about other climates, other adaptations, other versions of yourself. Just this one, here, now, breathing, resting, held. Water, snow, and fire. The tiger knows them all, and survives them all, and rests between them all. You can rest now too. Let the adaptations pause. Let the vigilance soften. Let yourself simply be, without needing to be ready for anything. Just floating, just warm, just here. Sleep is the climate you're in now, and you're perfectly adapted to it. Let yourself sink into it, all the way down. Let us drift now into the hidden world of the tiger's mind, a realm of memory and cunning that few ever witness. Close your eyes and imagine standing in the forest, watching as a tiger pauses mid-stride, remembering, always remembering. The tiger possesses an extraordinary spatial memory, far exceeding our own in its ability to map the wild. While we struggle to remember where we placed our keys an hour ago, a tiger can recall the precise location of a kill site it visited 30 days prior. It remembers the exact tree where it cached prey, the specific rock formation where water pools after rain, the particular turning in the path where a deer crossed 3 weeks ago at dawn. This extraordinary memory is not merely for survival, though survival depends upon it. It is a map of experience, written in neurons and electricity, spanning territories of up to 100 square kilometers. Every stream, every ridge, every shadow that might conceal either predator or prey. The tiger carries this map always, updating it with each journey, each hunt, each silent observation from the undergrowth. Scientists believe this enhanced memory evolved from necessity. A tiger cannot afford to forget. In a landscape where resources are scattered and competition is fierce, memory becomes territory itself. The tiger who remembers thrives. The tiger who forgets does not pass on its genes. And so the tiger remembers and remembers and remembers. Tigers demonstrate clear object permanence, understanding that objects continue to exist even when hidden from view. Object permanence. Such a simple phrase for such a profound concept. It is the understanding that the world continues even when we cannot see it, that the deer behind the boulder is still there, even though it has vanished from sight, that prey hidden in tall grass has not ceased to exist simply because it is obscured. Human infants develop this ability around 8 months of age, but a tiger cub understands this principle much earlier and with greater sophistication. Watch a tiger hunting, and you witness object permanence in action. The prey animal dips behind a termite mound. The tiger does not abandon the hunt in confusion. It does not believe the animal has vanished. Instead, it adjusts its approach, circling to intercept the animal's projected path, understanding implicitly that the deer will emerge on the other side. This cognitive ability transforms hunting from simple chase to complex strategy. The tiger can plan attacks around obstacles. It can use terrain to its advantage, driving prey toward hidden partners or natural barriers. It understands that the world has depth and permanence beyond immediate perception. In experiments, tigers have been observed watching prey animals enter enclosed spaces, then waiting patiently at the exit points, demonstrating their understanding that the animal must emerge somewhere. This is not instinct alone. This is thought. This is the mapping of reality in the theater of the mind. The tiger knows that what is hidden is not gone, only waiting. The depth of the tiger's consciousness is a subject of constant wonder, suggesting a level of self-awareness that is both profound and mysterious. Imagine a tiger approaching a mirror for the first time. Most animals see a rival, an intruder to be challenged or fled from. But some tigers see themselves. Mirror self-recognition is vanishingly rare in the animal kingdom. Humans, great apes, elephants, dolphins, magpies, and occasionally tigers. Not all tigers demonstrate this ability, which makes it all the more remarkable when they do. In controlled studies, individual tigers have been observed examining themselves in mirrors, using the reflection to investigate parts of their own bodies they cannot normally see. They touch marks placed on their foreheads, visible only in reflection. They examine their teeth, their ears, their flanks. This is self-awareness, the understanding that I am I, that the image in the still water is not another tiger, but oneself. What does a tiger think seeing its own reflection? Does it recognize the power in those shoulders, the intelligence in those eyes? Does it understand its own beauty, terrible and complete? We cannot know, but we know that somewhere in that magnificent brain, There exists a concept of self, an understanding of individual existence, separate from the forest, from the prey, from the world itself. The tiger knows itself, and in knowing itself, it knows its capabilities, its limits, its place in the ancient dance of survival. Rest now, and imagine that moment of recognition. Tigers possess exceptional facial and scent recognition abilities, allowing them to identify individual animals and humans across great distances and time. The forest remembers, and so does the tiger. Every face, every scent, every creature that has crossed its path leaves an impression, filed away in that extraordinary memory. A tiger can recognize the face of another tiger it encountered once, years ago, across a distance of several hundred meters. It can distinguish between individual humans with remarkable accuracy, remembering not just faces but gaits, behaviors, patterns of movement. Forest guards in India have reported tigers recognizing them specifically, even when dressed differently or approaching from unfamiliar directions. But it is scent where the tiger's recognition abilities truly excel. A tiger's sense of smell is not as acute as a dog's, but it is far more sophisticated than ours. The tiger can detect and identify the scent signature of individual animals, reading in those molecular traces a complete story: species, sex, age, reproductive status, stress levels, and identity. When a tiger marks territory with urine or scent glands, it is not merely claiming space. It is leaving a calling card, a chemical signature that other tigers will read and recognize. I was here, I am this tiger, this is mine, and the next tiger passing through will smell that mark and know exactly who left it, perhaps recognizing an old rival, a potential mate, or a sibling not encountered in years. The tiger creates a social network without society, maintaining relationships through scent and memory across vast territories where tigers may rarely meet face to face. It is a web of recognition spanning the forest, invisible but absolute. Every creature known, every individual remembered. The tiger forgets nothing and no one. Jungle legends and experienced trackers tell of the tiger's ability to mimic the calls of its prey, a ghostly impersonation in the darkness. Now we enter the realm of deception, the tiger as trickster, as impersonator, as the voice in the darkness that cannot be trusted. Bears make a distinctive pook sound, a contact call to communicate with other bears across distances. And tigers, patient and clever, have learned to reproduce this sound with startling accuracy. The bear, hearing what it believes is another bear, approaches and meets not kin, but predator. Sambar deer, one of the tiger's primary prey species, also fall victim to this vocal mimicry. Tigers have been documented imitating deer alarm calls and contact calls, exploiting the deer's social nature to draw them into ambush range. This is not instinct. This is learned behavior, passed down through observation and experimentation. A tiger cub may watch its mother use vocal mimicry successfully, then attempt the technique itself, refining the sound over months and years until the imitation is perfect. The deception requires not just the ability to produce the sound, but the intelligence to understand its meaning and effect. The tiger must comprehend that other animals communicate through vocalization, that specific sounds have specific meanings, and that reproducing those sounds can manipulate behavior. It is theory of mind. It is the understanding that other creatures have thoughts and responses that can be predicted and exploited. In the forest at dusk, when you hear the call of a deer or the contact sound of a bear, consider this. It may not be what you think. It may be the tiger, speaking in borrowed voices, turning language itself into a weapon. The forest is full of lies, and the tiger speaks them all fluently. Tigers employ sophisticated landscape navigation strategies, including the use of ridgelines, waterways, and game trails to optimize movement and hunting efficiency. The tiger does not wander. Every step is chosen, every path deliberate. The forest is a maze, but the tiger knows every turning. Across their vast territories, tigers develop and maintain networks as preferred travel routes. They follow ridgelines that offer strategic views of valleys below. They walk along waterways where prey animals congregate and scent is masked by flowing water. They use established game trails created by decades of deer and wild pig movement, paths of least resistance through dense vegetation. But these are not mere shortcuts. These routes are selected for tactical advantage. A ridgeline offers sight lines. A stream obscures scent and sound. A game trail provides predictable prey movement patterns. The tiger is thinking three-dimensionally, considering not just distance, but terrain, cover, wind direction, and probability of encounter. Tigers demonstrate remarkable navigation abilities, using specific passes through ranges, remembering which routes become impassable in different seasons, adjusting their territories vertically as prey animals migrate up and down slopes, following food and temperature gradients. They create mental maps of extraordinary detail and complexity. A tiger released far from its home territory has been documented traveling hundreds of kilometers through unfamiliar terrain to return home, navigating by some combination of memory, sun position, and landscape features we do not fully understand. The tiger is never lost, even in darkness, even in fog, even in forests so dense that visibility drops to meters. The tiger knows exactly where it is, where it has been, and where it is going. It moves through the landscape like water flowing downhill, following the path of least resistance and greatest opportunity, reading the earth like a book written specifically for its eyes alone. Tigers exhibit distinct behavioral movement phases throughout the day and night, strategically timing their activities to maximize hunting success and minimize energy expenditure. The tiger's day is a carefully choreographed dance of rest and action, stillness and movement, sleep and deadly focus. Contrary to popular belief, tigers are not strictly nocturnal. They are crepuscular, most active during the transitional hours of dawn and dusk, when light plays tricks and prey animals are moving between day and night territories. But this is only part of the pattern. A tiger's daily routine typically includes 3 to 4 distinct activity phases. The first begins before sunrise, when the forest is still dark but beginning to stir. The tiger rises from its resting place and begins to move, checking territory boundaries, visiting water sources, investigating scent marks left by other tigers during the night. As morning arrives, there is often a hunting phase. Prey animals are active, feeding after the night, and visibility is improving but still limited enough to provide cover. The tiger moves with purpose now, following trails, testing the wind, searching. Mid-morning through afternoon brings rest. The tiger finds shade, often near water, and sleeps. But this is not the sleep of the exhausted. It is strategic rest, conserving energy for the efforts to come. The tiger may sleep for hours, barely moving, its breathing slow and deep, but always alert to sounds and scents that might indicate opportunity or danger. Late afternoon brings another activity phase. The tiger grooms, stretches, drinks, perhaps moves to a new resting area, or investigates a different section of territory. It is preparing for the evening hunt. Then comes the prime hunting hours, dusk into darkness. This is when the tiger is most focused, most dangerous. Prey animals are active, moving to night feeding areas or water sources. The tiger knows this. The tiger has always known this. Finally, the night brings variable activity. The tiger may hunt, patrol, rest, or travel long distances between parts of its territory. Each tiger develops individual patterns, but all are governed by the same principle: minimize energy expenditure while maximizing opportunity. The tiger lives in rhythm with the forest, its internal clock synchronized to the movements of prey, the patterns of light and shadow, the eternal cycle of hunt and rest, effort and recovery. It is a machine of efficiency, wasting nothing, optimizing everything, living each day according to strategies refined over thousands of years of evolution. These are the gifts of the tiger's mind: memory that spans months, understanding of object permanence and self, recognition of individuals across time and distance, the ability to deceive through mimicry, navigation strategies of remarkable sophistication, and behavioral rhythms perfectly tuned to the forest's own heartbeat. The tiger is not merely strong, it is not merely fast, it is profoundly, remarkably intelligent. A cognitive masterpiece wrapped in striped muscle and bone, thinking and remembering and planning in the green shadows where few humans ever venture. As you drift towards sleep, imagine that mind at work, the constant processing of information, the memories stacking like stones into monuments of experience, the calculations of distance and probability, the recognition of faces and scents, the mimicry of voices, the navigation of landscapes vast and complex. The tiger knows, the tiger remembers, the tiger thinks, and somewhere in the forest, right now, a tiger is using all of these abilities, moving through its territory with purpose and intelligence we are only beginning to understand. Rest now. Let these thoughts fade like sunset through the trees. The tiger continues its eternal vigil, and you can sleep. Now we must speak of hunger, of the weight of survival, of the immense cost of being a tiger in a world that grows smaller every year. But there is no fear here, only quiet understanding, only the slow recognition of what it means to live as an apex predator in forests that remember when tigers were many and prey was endless. Breathe slowly. Let us walk through these truths together. Tigers have a hunting success rate of only 5 to 10%. 5 to 10%. Imagine embarking on a task where you will fail 9 times out of every 10 attempts, where success is the rare exception and failure is the grinding constant. This is the tiger's reality. For every successful kill, there are 9 deer that escape, 9 wild boar that detect the approach and flee, 9 sambar that hear the snap of a twig or catch the faintest trace of scent on the wind and vanish into the forest before the tiger can close the final distance. This low success rate is not a reflection of incompetence. The tiger is perhaps the most efficient large predator on Earth. But prey animals have evolved alongside predators for millions of years, and they are good at not dying. They are vigilant, fast, and equipped with senses tuned specifically to detect the presence of tigers. The tiger must be perfect. The prey need only be lucky once. And so the tiger hunts and fails, hunts again and fails. The energy expended on failed hunts is energy that must be recouped through successful kills, creating a delicate balance between effort and reward. A tiger cannot afford too many failures in succession. Hunger is always present, always waiting, but the tiger persists. 9 failures mean nothing if the 10th attempt succeeds. And so the patient stalking continues, through dawn and dusk, through hunger and exhaustion, until finally, briefly, the tiger eats. Tigers must hunt successfully nearly every week to maintain their body condition. The hunger is constant, not dramatic, not the gnawing desperation of starvation, but a steady pressure that never fully abates, a requirement written into muscle and metabolism. A tiger cannot skip meals. It cannot decide to fast for a while and save energy. Its enormous body, that magnificent engine of muscle and bone, requires fuel continuously. The furnace must be fed. Every 3 to 7 days, depending on the size of the last kill, the tiger must hunt successfully again. There are no vacations, no days off, no seasons of plenty so abundant that the tiger can truly rest. Even in the richest territories with prey animals thick in the undergrowth, the 5 to 10% success rate means the tiger must attempt dozens of hunts between successful kills. Consider this rhythm: kill, feed, rest, patrol, hunt, fail, hunt, succeed, kill, feed, rest, patrol, hunt, fail. The cycle eternal, unending, relentless. Injuries complicate this rhythm. A tiger with a damaged paw cannot hunt effectively. A broken tooth reduces killing efficiency. Time eventually softens the edges of their power, inviting a slower pace and a different kind of wisdom in the hunt. And yet the hunger remains constant. The requirement does not decrease simply because the tiger is suffering. Old tigers, unable to maintain this killing rhythm, sometimes turn to easier prey, easier paths, avoiding the deep forest to find what they need in the shared spaces of the world. Not from malice, but from the simple mathematics of survival. When the hunting success rate drops below sustainable levels, the tiger must adapt or starve, but most tigers in their prime maintain the rhythm: hunt and kill, rest and patrol, hunt and kill again, the drumbeat of survival, steady and unceasing, throughout all the years of their lives. A tiger consumes 18 to 27 kilograms of meat per successful kill, 40 to 60 pounds of meat, nearly half the tiger's own body weight, consumed in great tearing mouthfuls, swallowed in chunks the size of your fist. When the tiger kills, it does not nibble delicately. This is not a meal. This is restocking fuel reserves depleted by days of hunting and patrolling. The tiger feeds with purpose and urgency, using its specialized carnassial teeth to slice through hide and muscle, its powerful jaws crushing bones to access the rich marrow within. The tiger typically begins feeding on the hindquarters or stomach of the kill, consuming the most nutritious organs first: liver, heart, kidneys. These are dense with vitamins and minerals, essential nutrients that cannot be obtained from muscle meat alone. Then comes the muscle tissue, layer after layer stripped from the carcass in an efficient, methodical process. 27 kilograms is the upper limit, typically achieved only when the tiger is very hungry and the kill is fresh. More commonly, the tiger consumes 18 to 20 kilograms in an initial feeding session, then rests, allowing its stomach to settle before returning to feed again. The sheer volume is staggering. The tiger's body is a vessel of incredible elasticity, designed to carry the fuel of several days in a single, quiet feast. But the tiger's digestive system is designed for this feast or famine existence. Its stomach can expand enormously to accommodate these massive meals, then contract again during the lean days between kills. After feeding, the tiger's belly distends visibly. It moves slowly, heavily, seeking water to drink and shade to rest in. For a few hours, the tiger is vulnerable, sluggish with fullness, but it is also satisfied in a way that will not come again for days. The hunger will return. It always does. But for now, there is meat in the belly, and that is enough. Tigers typically feed on a single kill over 2 to 3 days. The kill site becomes a temporary home, a place the tiger returns to again and again until there is nothing left but bones and hide. After the initial feeding, the tiger does not abandon the carcass. Too much effort went into the kill, and too much uncertainty surrounds the next successful hunt. Every scrap of meat represents precious calories, and the tiger will defend and utilize the kill until it is consumed or spoiled. The pattern is predictable. Feed heavily, retreat to nearby shade or water, rest for several hours while the meat digests, return to feed again. This cycle repeats multiple times over 2 to 3 days, depending on the size of the kill and the tiger's hunger level. A large sambar deer or wild boar can sustain a tiger for the full 3 days. Smaller prey like chital or young deer may be consumed more quickly, disappearing in a day and a half. Very large kills like adult gaur or water buffalo may provide food for even longer, though the risk of spoilage increases in hot climates. During this period, the tiger maintains a close vigil over the carcass. It does not wander far. Its territory patrols pause. The world contracts to a small radius around the kill site, which must be defended against all competitors. The tiger rests nearby, but rarely deeply, always listening, always ready to return if scavengers approach. The meat represents days of survival, and it will not be surrendered easily. On the 3rd day, or whenever the meat is exhausted or begins to rot, the tiger finally abandons the site. The carcass is left to the forest, to the jackals and vultures and insects that convert the remains into soil and memory, and the tiger moves on because the hunger is returning, and it is time to hunt again. Tigers carefully cover their kills with leaves, dirt, and vegetation to hide them from scavengers. Watch a tiger after a successful kill, and you will witness an ancient ritual as preservation and protection. Once the initial feeding is complete, the tiger does not simply walk away. It circles the carcass, assessing the area, then begins to scrape leaves, dirt, grass, and small branches over the remains. Using its massive claws like shovels, it piles material onto the carcass, covering it as completely as possible. This behavior serves multiple purposes. The covering helps conceal the kill from aerial scavengers like vultures, whose keen eyesight can spot a carcass from extraordinary distances. It masks some of the scent, making it harder for jackals, wild dogs, and other ground scavengers to locate the prize, and it provides a layer of insulation, helping to keep the meat cooler and slowing decomposition in hot climates. The tiger's cache is not perfect. Determined scavengers can still find and uncover the kill, but it reduces losses and extends the feeding window by crucial hours, sometimes a full day. There is something almost tender about this behavior. The careful placement of leaves, the methodical covering, the tiger treating its kill not as disposable, but as a precious resource to be protected and preserved. After covering the carcass, the tiger typically retreats to a resting spot within 50 to 100 meters, close enough to hear disturbances, but far enough to avoid drawing attention to the kill site through its own presence. And there it waits, resting but alert, ready to return and defend the cache if necessary. The kill represents days of survival, and every scrap matters. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is surrendered without necessity. The tiger covers its kill and rests and waits for hunger to return. A single tiger requires a prey base of approximately 500 animals to sustain itself throughout the year. 500 lives, 500 deer and boar and sambar and chital, moving through the forest, grazing and breeding and dying, creating the foundation upon which a single tiger's existence rests. This number accounts for the low hunting success rate, the feeding requirements, and the natural reproductive rate of prey populations. The tiger cannot harvest prey faster than the population can regenerate, or the foundation crumbles and the tiger starves. It is a delicate balance, an equation of predator and prey that has held steady for millennia. The tiger takes what it needs, and the prey populations, if healthy and undisturbed, replace those losses through reproduction. The forest achieves equilibrium, but this equilibrium requires space. 500 prey animals need territory to graze, to breed, to thrive. They need diverse habitat, water sources, vegetation cover, and the tiger needs access to all of it. A hunting range large enough to encompass this minimum prey base. When habitats fragment, when forests are cleared, when prey populations are depleted by poaching or competition with livestock, this equation breaks down. A territory that once supported 500 prey animals may now support only 200. And the tiger, facing the same metabolic requirements, begins to starve. This is why tiger conservation is fundamentally about habitat and prey conservation. You cannot save tigers without saving the intricate web of life that supports them. The 500 deer matter as much as the single tiger, because without them, there is no tiger. The forest must be vast enough, the prey must be abundant enough, the balance must hold, or the tiger vanishes and the forest falls silent. Tiger territories range from 20 square miles in prey-rich areas to over 500 square miles in less productive regions. Territory size is a direct reflection of prey density. The equation is simple. The tiger needs access to approximately 500 prey animals, and it will claim whatever territory size is necessary to encompass that prey base. In the lush forests of southern India, or the Sundarbans, where prey is abundant and the forest is thick with life, a tiger's territory may be relatively compact. 20 to 30 square miles can provide everything the tiger needs. The boundaries are smaller, the patrols shorter, the hunting grounds rich and productive. But in the harsh environments of the Russian Far East, where Siberian tigers hunt in snow-covered forests with lower prey densities, territories expand dramatically. 100, 200, even 500 square miles may be necessary to encompass enough prey to sustain a single tiger. The patrols become odysseys. The territory becomes a kingdom, requiring days to traverse. Male territories are typically larger than female territories, often overlapping the ranges of multiple females. This is not random. The male must ensure access to breeding opportunities while also maintaining his own prey base. The female's territory is more focused, centered around denning sites and the needs of raising cubs, which require proximity to reliable hunting grounds. These territories are not abstract concepts. They are real landscapes measured in paw prints and scent marks, in ridgelines walked and streams crossed, in every tree scratched and every game trail patrolled. The tiger knows every square meter intimately, carrying a mental map of extraordinary detail. But territories are not fixed. They shift and adjust based on prey movements, season changes, and pressure from other tigers. A young male establishing his first territory may initially claim less productive land, expanding only as he matures and can defend larger areas. An old tiger may see its territory contract as younger, stronger tigers encroach from the edges. The territory is the tiger's world, the stage upon which its entire life unfolds. Everything happens within these boundaries, or at the crossing points where territories overlap, and tigers, briefly, acknowledge one another's existence. Tigers mark territory boundaries using urine, feces, tree scratching, and scent gland deposits. The boundaries are invisible to human eyes, but they are written clearly in a language every tiger understands. Urine marking is the primary method. The tiger backs up to a tree or rock, tail raised high, and sprays a mixture of urine and scent gland secretions at nose height for other tigers. This mark carries information: the tiger's identity, sex, reproductive status, and approximate time since marking. A fresh mark says, "I am here now." An old mark says, "I was here days ago. Perhaps I have moved on." Boundary areas receive intense marking attention, with spray marks every few hundred meters along territorial edges. These are the fence lines, the property markers, the signs that say, "Beyond this point, you enter my domain." But the tiger also marks interior areas, particularly along travel routes and near preferred hunting grounds. These marks serve different purposes, reminding the tiger itself of its own territory, advertising to potential mates, and maintaining a pervasive scent presence that reinforces ownership. Tree scratching serves a complementary function. The tiger rises on its hind legs and rakes its front claws down the bark of select trees, leaving visible marks that can remain for months or even years. These scratches are often combined with scent marking, creating multi-sensory boundary posts that communicate both visually and chemically. Feces are also strategically deposited, usually in visible locations like trail intersections or ridge tops. Unlike prey animals that hide their waste to avoid detection, the tiger advertises its presence. The feces are another form of marking, another statement of ownership. And finally, the tiger possesses scent glands between its toes and on its face, depositing chemical signatures with every step and every time it rubs against vegetation. The entire territory becomes saturated with the tiger's scent, an olfactory map that other tigers read as clearly as we read street signs. The marking behavior is constant, maintained throughout the tiger's life. Boundaries must be refreshed regularly, or other tigers will encroach, testing the edges, probing for weakness. The territory exists only as long as the tiger has the strength to defend and advertise it. When a tiger dies or weakens, its scent marks fade, and within weeks, other tigers move into the vacuum. The territory is redistributed, claimed by younger, stronger competitors. Nothing in the forest remains empty for long. Tiger territories often follow natural channels like rivers, ridgelines, and valleys, creating ribbon-shaped ranges rather than circular areas. The territory is not a neat circle drawn on a map. It is an organic shape molded by landscape features that concentrate prey movement and provide strategic advantages. Rivers serve as natural boundaries and central corridors. Prey animals must drink, and they concentrate along watercourses. Tigers claim riverine territories, patrolling both banks, controlling access to water and the rich feeding grounds that develop along river edges. Ridgelines offer visibility and efficient travel routes. A tiger walking a ridge can survey valleys below, watching for movement, scenting the wind that rises from the lowlands, carrying information about everything below. These high routes become highways, regularly patrolled, connecting different portions of the territory. Valleys channel both prey and predator movement. Dense vegetation in valley bottoms provides cover for hunting, while the slopes funnel prey into predictable routes. A tiger controlling a valley controls the choke points, where hunting success rates climb above the usual 5 to 10%. The result is territories that may be narrow but extensive, following waterways for miles, or clustering around productive valley systems. A territory 50 miles long but only a few miles wide can provide everything the tiger needs if it follows a prey-rich corridor. These channel-based territories create interesting overlap patterns. Two tigers' territories may run parallel along different rivers for miles, technically neighbors but rarely encountering one another directly. Or territories may share a ridge system, with tigers using different valleys on opposite slopes, separated by elevation rather than distance. The tiger does not impose geometric order on chaos. It adapts to the landscape, molding its territory to fit the contours of the land, following the logic of water and elevation, prey movement, and strategic advantage. The territory is a living shape, breathing with the seasons, contracting during droughts when prey concentrates around permanent water, expanding during monsoons when the forest explodes with life and prey disperses across broader ranges. Tigers may patrol up to 80 kilometers in a single day while monitoring their territories. 80 kilometers, 50 miles, the distance of nearly 2 marathons, walked in near silence through forest and over mountain, through darkness and dawn, alone. This is not every day, but it is not rare either. When a tiger has a large territory, when boundaries need refreshing, when prey is sparse and hunting requires ranging widely, these enormous daily patrols become necessary. The tiger does not move randomly. Each patrol follows established routes, checking key locations in sequence. Water sources where prey congregates. Boundary markers requiring scent refreshing. Game trails where monitoring might reveal new prey movement patterns. Overlapping zones where neighboring tigers might have encroached. These patrols can take 12 to 16 hours, with brief rests but no extended stops. The tiger moves with purpose and efficiency, not hurrying but never dawdling, covering ground at a sustainable pace that can be maintained for hours. During patrols, the tiger is gathering information constantly. Scent marking reveals which neighbors are nearby, whether any are in estrus, whether strange tigers have entered the area. Visual observations track prey populations. Sounds provide ambient awareness of the forest's rhythms and anomalies. The patrol is both physical presence and intelligence gathering. The tiger must be seen, must leave scent evidence that it is actively defending the territory. But it must also know what is happening within its domain, what has changed, what opportunities or threats have emerged. For Siberian tigers in the vast forests of Russia, these patrols can extend even longer, occasionally exceeding 100 kilometers when moving between distant portions of enormous territories. The endurance required is staggering, yet the tiger accomplishes it regularly, padded feet covering kilometer after kilometer in patient, relentless progression. And then, the patrol complete, the tiger rests, perhaps for a full day, recovering from the exertion, before rising to hunt, to patrol again, to maintain the endless cycle that defines its existence. Young tigers dispersing from their birth territories may travel over 200 kilometers to establish their own ranges. This is the great journey, the exodus from childhood to independence. When a young tiger reaches maturity, usually between 18 months and 2 years of age, it must leave its mother's territory and find its own. For young females, this dispersal is often relatively short. They may establish territories adjacent to or partially overlapping their mother's range, creating matrilineal clusters where mothers, daughters, and granddaughters hold neighboring territories, occasionally crossing paths, briefly acknowledging kinship, before returning to their solitary lives. But for young males, the journey is far more challenging. They cannot settle near their birthplace. Adult males do not tolerate potential rivals, even their own sons, and so the young male must travel, searching for unclaimed territory or a weak territory holder that can be challenged and displaced, 200 kilometers or more, through unfamiliar forests, across rivers and mountains, through territories held by adult tigers who view the young male as either threat or prey, depending on his size and their hunger. These dispersal journeys are among the most dangerous periods in a tiger's life. The young tiger does not know the landscape. It does not know where prey congregates or where water flows in the dry season. It must hunt in unfamiliar terrain while avoiding conflicts with established tigers. Many do not survive the journey. Some wander through marginal habitat, the edges between forest and human settlement, where prey is scarce and the risk of human conflict high. Some cross roads and railway lines, facing vehicles and infrastructure never encountered in their protected birth territories. Some emerge from forests to find only farmland, and in desperation may take livestock, sealing their fate. But some succeed. They find a patch of forest, perhaps degraded but sufficient, and stake a claim, where they encounter an old tiger whose strength is failing, and they fight, and they win, and the young tiger, having traveled farther than most humans travel in a lifetime, finally stops moving. This is home now. This is the territory that will define the rest of their life. They begin to mark, to patrol, to hunt. The wandering ends, the vigil begins. Tigers increasingly move at night to avoid human contact and shared landscapes. The tiger adapts or it dies, and so the tiger has learned to become even more invisible, shifting its activity patterns to avoid the species that has reshaped the world. In pristine wilderness, tigers follow their natural crepuscular rhythms, active at dawn and dusk, with variable patterns through day and night. But in areas where human activity is high, where villages border forests and roads cut through territories, tigers have become increasingly nocturnal. They rest through the day, hidden in dense cover, waiting for darkness. Only when humans retreat to their homes and the forest grows quiet does the tiger emerge to patrol and hunt. The shift is not total. Tigers still hunt during dawn and dusk if opportunities arise, but the primary activity window moves deeper into night, the hours between midnight and 4 a.m. becoming prime time for movement and hunting. This behavioral adaptation comes at a cost. Many prey species are less active at night, reducing hunting opportunities. Navigation is more challenging in complete darkness, even for the tiger's excellent low-light vision, and the shift indicates stress, a deviation from optimal patterns forced by the constant pressure of human presence. In some regions, tigers have learned to recognize the schedules of forest guards and villagers. They avoid paths during hours when humans are likely to be present. They cross roads only in darkness. They have even learned to associate vehicles with human presence, freezing in place or retreating into cover when they hear engines, even if no humans are visible. This is not the tiger's choice. It is an accommodation, a survival strategy in a world where wilderness shrinks daily and human influence expands into every remaining wild space. The tiger wants only to exist, to hunt, to raise cubs, to maintain its territory in peace. But peace requires avoidance, and avoidance requires becoming a ghost, operating in the hours when humans sleep, moving through the darkness like a whisper, there and gone, seen by almost no one. In this way, the tiger survives, diminished but enduring, adapting but not defeated, still walking its ancient territories, still marking boundaries, still hunting in the darkness, still here, still wild, still fighting the slow battle for survival, in a world that has less and less room for creatures that need 500 prey animals and territories measured in hundreds of square miles. These are the costs: the hunger that never fully abates, the failed hunts that outnumber successes 9-1, the massive territories requiring endless patrols, the dangerous dispersal journeys, the retreat into deeper darkness to avoid human contact. This is what it means to be a tiger in the modern world, not just power and beauty, but exhaustion and hunger and constant, relentless effort. The mathematics of survival grow harder every year as habitats fragment and prey populations decline. And yet the tiger endures, patrolling its territory, hunting and failing and hunting again, marking boundaries with scent and scratch, traveling impossible distances through the night, adapting its patterns to share space with humans who mostly never know the tiger walked past their homes in darkness. The tiger survives because it must, because the alternative is extinction, because somewhere in its extraordinary mind and magnificent body is a will that refuses surrender. As you drift towards sleep, consider this. Somewhere in the darkness, a tiger is walking. 80 kilometers tonight, perhaps, checking boundaries, seeking prey, maintaining the endless vigil that is its life. Hungry but not defeated, tired but still moving. The tiger endures, and in its endurance, there is something worthy of our quiet astonishment, our respect, our commitment to ensuring that territories remain large enough, prey populations healthy enough, and wild spaces protected enough that the tiger's slow, difficult survival becomes something more, something like thriving. Rest now, the tiger walks on without you, and will still be walking when you wake. Just breathe, just peace. Now we turn to the most intimate chapter of the tiger's life, to birth and death, to the fierce protection of young, to the complex calculations of reproduction, in a world where every cub matters and survival is never guaranteed. This is not a story of drama, but of depth, of the quiet ways that tigers create the next generation against odds that would overwhelm lesser creatures. Breathe deeply. Let us witness these tender and terrible truths together. The tiger does not breed casually. Every mating is significant. Every birth is precious. Every cub that survives to adulthood represents a triumph against formidable odds. A female tiger comes into estrus rarely, perhaps once every several months when she is not raising cubs. The window is brief, lasting only 3 to 6 days. During this time, her body releases pheromones into the air, and her urine, chemical signals that drift through the forest announcing her receptivity to any male within range. The male receives this information through his vomeronasal organ, that specialized scent processor we discussed earlier. He tastes the air and knows immediately that a female is fertile, and he comes, traveling from the far edges of his territory, drawn by the promise of reproduction, by the biological imperative that drives all living things. But the female tiger is an induced ovulator, meaning her body does not release eggs on a fixed schedule. Instead, ovulation is triggered by the act of mating itself. This is a reproductive strategy that maximizes the chances of conception during the brief estrus window, ensuring that eggs are present and ready only when sperm is available to fertilize them. And so when male and female meet, they must mate repeatedly, not once or twice, but dozens of times over several days, 50 times per day, perhaps more. Brief copulations lasting only seconds, repeated every 20 to 30 minutes throughout the day and night. The frequency is necessary to induce ovulation and ensure conception. Each mating is a trigger, a chemical and physical stimulus that tells the female's body to release eggs. For 3 to 6 days, the pair remains together. They rest side by side, groom one another occasionally, and mate with relentless frequency. There is something almost tender in their proximity, this brief partnership between two creatures who spend the vast majority of their lives in solitude. But when the estrus ends, the partnership dissolves. The female's pheromones change, signaling that she is no longer receptive. The male loses interest and departs, returning to his territory, to his endless patrols and hunts. He will play no role in raising the cubs that may result from this union. His contribution ends here, with genetics and departure. The female is alone again, as she has always been, as she will remain to what comes next. She carries the developing cubs for 103 to 110 days, approximately 3.5 months. During this time, her hunting must continue, her territory must be defended. The patrols, the marking, the constant effort of survival, all continue even as new life grows within her. As the pregnancy progresses, her belly swells, she becomes slightly slower, slightly less agile. The hunting success rate, already only 5 to 10%, may drop further. But she adapts, focusing on easier prey, taking fewer risks, conserving energy where possible. She seeks out a den site, usually a cave, a hollow beneath fallen trees, or a dense thicket that provides shelter and concealment. She prepares this space, clearing debris, creating a soft bed of leaves and grass. This will be the birthplace, the first home her cubs will know. And then, in darkness and privacy, she gives birth. The cubs emerge tiny and helpless, weighing only 700 grams to 1.5 kilograms, less than 4 pounds each. They are born blind, their eyes sealed shut and will not open for 6 to 14 days. They are born deaf, unable to hear their mother's calls. They can barely crawl, dragging themselves toward the warmth of their mother's body through instinct alone. They are the most vulnerable creatures in the forest, unable to walk, unable to see, unable to hear, unable to regulate their own body temperature, completely, absolutely dependent on their mother for everything. The litter typically contains 2 to 4 cubs, though sometimes as few as 1 or as many as 7. Each cub is a replica of their mother in miniature, striped and perfect and impossibly small. They nurse immediately, finding their mother's nipples through scent and warmth, drawing the rich milk that will be their only food for the first 2 months of life. The mother does not leave the den for the first few days after birth. She curls around her cubs, providing warmth, protection, and constant access to milk. She cleans them with her rough tongue, stimulating their digestion and elimination. She listens to the forest, alert for any sound that might indicate danger approaching her vulnerable young. But even with all her care, the odds are terrible. Cub mortality in the wild ranges from 30 to 50% in the first year. Many cubs die within weeks of birth. Some are born too weak to survive, unable to compete with larger siblings for access to milk. Some succumb to exposure during the mother's necessary hunting trips. Some die from disease or infection. Some are killed by predators that discover the den while the mother is away. Pythons or leopards or wild dogs that recognize the cubs as easy prey. And some are killed by other tigers, specifically by adult males who are not the cub's father. This is infanticide, and it is a reproductive strategy, though a brutal one. When a new male takes over a territory, displacing or killing the previous dominant male, he encounters females who may be raising cubs sired by his predecessor. These cubs represent a problem for the new male. The female will not come into estrus again while she is nursing and raising young, which could be 2 to 3 years. From the male's genetic perspective, those years are wasted opportunity, and so, if he encounters the cubs, he kills them, quickly, efficiently, without hesitation. The female will fight desperately to defend her young, but she is smaller than the male and rarely succeeds in driving him away. The cubs die, and within weeks, the female enters estrus again, ready to mate with the male who killed her children. It is horrifying by human standards, but it is evolution's cold mathematics. The male who commits infanticide sires cubs sooner than the male who does not. His genes spread more efficiently, and so this behavior persists, written into the genome through thousands of generations of natural selection. Not all males commit infanticide. Some, particularly males who have held territories for long periods and might have sired cubs across multiple litters, show tolerance toward young tigers. There are documented cases of adult males feeding peacefully near cubs, even sharing kills with juveniles. These may be their own offspring, or they may be acting on probability. In a territory held for years, any cubs encountered are more likely than not to carry the male's genes, making tolerance the better strategy. But these cases are rare. The general rule holds: male tigers are a threat to cubs, and mothers go to extraordinary lengths to avoid them during the vulnerable early months. The mother's strategy is concealment and constant vigilance. She moves the cubs to new den sites regularly, every few weeks, carrying them one by one in her mouth by the scruff of their necks. This reduces the chance that predators or competing tigers will discover the den location. She hunts only when necessary, keeping trips as brief as possible. She selects prey closer to the den, accepting lower quality hunting grounds to minimize time away from her cubs. When she must leave, she hides the cubs carefully, tucking them into dense cover and instructing them with low vocalizations to remain silent and still. The cubs obey. They have a rich vocal language even in infancy, using different calls to communicate hunger, cold, fear, contentment, and the desire for contact. But they learn quickly that silence is survival, that staying hidden while mother is away is the difference between life and death. When the mother returns, they emerge from hiding and rush to her, mewing and purring, climbing over one another to reach her belly and nurse. These reunions are moments of pure relief and connection, the cubs safe again under their mother's protection, the mother reassured that all her young survived her absence. As the weeks pass, the cubs grow stronger, their eyes open, revealing the blue-gray color of infancy that will gradually shift to the golden amber of adulthood. Their ears unfold and become functional. They begin to walk, then run, then play fight with one another, developing the coordination and strength they will need to survive. At 2 months, they take their first meat, tearing at scraps the mother brings to the den. Their tiny milk teeth are supplemented by solid food, and the weaning process begins gradually. By 3 to 4 months, they are mobile enough to follow their mother on short trips away from the den. By 6 months, they are accompanying her to kills, learning by observation how to feed efficiently, which parts of the carcass to consume first, how to cover the remains. This is when their education truly begins. Everything the mother does, the cubs watch and imitate. How to stalk, how to judge distance, how to move silently, how to read the wind, how to select prey, how to kill cleanly, how to avoid danger. The teaching is not formal. The mother does not pause to explain. She simply lives her life, and the cubs absorb every detail through constant observation. They play-stalk insects and small animals, developing their coordination. They ambush one another from behind trees, practicing the techniques they will need to hunt. They learn through trial and error, guided by instinct, but refined through experience. The mother is patient with them, tolerating their clumsiness and noise during these learning months. She allows them to feed first at kills, stepping back and waiting until they are satisfied before eating her own portion. She is giving them the calories they need to grow, prioritizing their survival over her own immediate needs. This maternal care continues for 2 to 3 years, an extraordinary investment of time and energy. During this period, the mother does not mate. She focuses entirely on raising her current litter to independence. She is foregoing future reproductive opportunities to maximize the survival chances of her existing cubs. This is reproductive optimization. A female tiger in her lifetime may raise 5 to 6 litters, assuming she lives to old age and maintains territory and health throughout. Each litter represents years of investment. Each cub that survives to establish its own territory and reproduce represents success, the continuation of her genetic line. She cannot afford to raise every cub poorly in an attempt to produce more litters. Better to invest fully in each litter, ensuring that at least 1 or 2 cubs survive to adulthood, than to rush through raising many litters and lose all the cubs to poor preparation and inadequate care. And so she stays with them year after year until they are large enough, skilled enough, and confident enough to survive alone. The young females may disperse nearby, establishing territories adjacent to their mother's range. The young males must travel far, seeking their own territories in distant forests, beginning those dangerous 200-kilometer dispersal journeys we discussed earlier. The separation is gradual. The mother begins to spend more time away from the maturing cubs. She becomes less tolerant of their presence at kills. She may growl or swat at them when they approach too closely. The message is clear. It is time to leave, time to claim your own life. And eventually, the cubs obey. They drift away from their mother's territory, tentatively at first, then with increasing confidence. The mother, alone again after 2 to 3 years of constant company, returns to her solitary existence. She will come into estrus within weeks or months. A male will detect her signals and come to mate. The cycle will begin again. New cubs born blind and tiny, new months of vigilance and care, new years devoted to raising the next generation. She will do this 5 or 6 times if she is fortunate. Each litter a fresh attempt to beat the odds. Each cub a hope, a genetic investment, a connection to the future. Some of her cubs will die before their first birthday. Some will die during dispersal, but some will survive. Some will establish territories. Some will mate and produce cubs of their own. And through them, she achieves what every living thing seeks, continuation beyond individual death. There is one more chapter to this story, a human intervention in the ancient cycle. When cubs are orphaned by poaching or accident, when their mother is killed and they are left too young to survive alone, sometimes humans intervene. Orphan rehabilitation programs exist in several countries, facilities where infant tigers are raised by hand, taught to hunt through carefully designed training, and eventually released into protected areas. The success rate is surprisingly high, with many rehabilitated tigers establishing territories and reproducing successfully. This is not natural. This is humans attempting to compensate for the damage humans have caused, raising cubs whose mothers fell to human violence. But it works. The cubs learn, they adapt, they become wild tigers hunting and patrolling and raising their own cubs, carrying no obvious scars from their unusual upbringing. It is a small, bright point in the larger story of tiger conservation, a reminder that when humans choose to help rather than harm, the tiger is resilient enough to accept that help and transform it into survival. The tiger family story is not simple. It contains tenderness and violence, extraordinary maternal devotion and brutal infanticide, high mortality and remarkable resilience. It is the story of how tigers create the next generation against odds that would overwhelm lesser species. Every tiger alive today represents a chain of successful reproduction stretching back millions of years, an unbroken line of mothers who cared enough, hunted well enough, and defended fiercely enough to raise cubs to independence. Every tiger is the temporary culmination of that ancient chain, carrying it forward into an uncertain future. As you drift towards sleep, picture the mother tiger curled around her blind, tiny cubs in the darkness of the den. Picture her leaving to hunt, returning with meat, teaching patience through example. Picture the cubs growing, learning, playing, becoming more capable with each passing week. Picture the moment of separation, when the young tiger walks away from its mother for the final time, heading out into the forest to claim its own territory, to begin its own solitary life, to perhaps one day raise cubs of its own. The chain continues, link by link, generation by generation, as long as forests remain and prey endures and tigers have the space they need to live and raise their young. Rest now. The mother watches over her cubs. The cycle turns. Life continues, fierce and tender, brutal and beautiful, exactly as it has for thousands of years. The tiger endures, and in that endurance, the future remains possible. Now we must step back, far back, beyond the span of human memory, beyond recorded history, into the deep time where species are born and shaped and sometimes vanish. This is the story of the tiger across millennia, a story of survival against catastrophe, of divergence and adaptation, of loss so vast it defies comprehension. But there is no panic here, only quiet recognition. Only the slow acknowledgement of time's weight and the fragility of existence. Breathe. Let us walk through these ancient corridors together. The tiger as we know it is approximately 2 million years old as a distinct species, but the lineage stretches back further to ancestral cats that prowled forests when the world was warmer and ice caps were smaller. For most of that vast span of time, tigers were successful, spreading across Asia, adapting to environments from tropical jungles to frozen tundra. But approximately 70,000 years ago, something happened that nearly ended the tiger's story forever. The Toba supereruption, a volcanic event so massive it almost defies imagination. In what is now Sumatra, a volcano exploded with a force 1,000 times greater than Mount St. Helens. It ejected an estimated 2,800 cubic kilometers of ash and rock into the atmosphere, enough material to bury the entire United States under half a meter of volcanic debris. The ash clouds spread across the planet, blocking sunlight, dropping global temperatures by as much as 3 to 5 degrees Celsius. This volcanic winter lasted for years, perhaps decades. Forests died, grasslands withered, prey animals starved, and the predators that depended on those prey animals died in turn. The tiger population, which had been widespread and numerous across Asia, collapsed. Genetic evidence suggests that the entire species was reduced to a tiny remnant population, possibly only a few thousand individuals, perhaps even fewer. Some estimates suggest the bottleneck was so severe that all modern tigers descend from a founding population that could have fit in a single forest. Most tigers died, entire regional populations vanished completely. The genetic diversity accumulated over hundreds of thousands of years was stripped away in a geological instant, leaving only the survivors, clustered in refugia where conditions allowed bare survival. For thousands of years after Toba, the tiger teetered on the edge of extinction. The population remained small, fragmented, struggling to recover in a world still recovering from the eruption's effects. Genetic diversity remained dangerously low. Inbreeding became inevitable in the scattered, isolated populations, but the tiger survived. Slowly, as the climate stabilized and forests regenerated, the population began to grow again. Tigers spread out from the refugia, recolonizing territories where their ancestors had lived before the eruption. The species persisted, though forever marked by that ancient catastrophe. The genetic signature of Toba remains visible today. When scientists sequence tiger genomes, they find evidence of that bottleneck written in the DNA, a narrowing of diversity that occurred 70,000 years ago and never fully recovered. All tigers, whether Siberian or Bengal or Sumatran, share this hidden history, this moment when the species nearly blinked out of existence. After Toba, as tigers spread across Asia, then they encountered different environments, different climates, different prey assemblages, and they began to diverge, adapting to local conditions, accumulating genetic differences through isolation, and natural selection. Approximately 20,000 years ago, during and after the last ice age, the tiger subspecies we recognize today began to emerge as distinct lineages. Populations in the frozen north became larger, paler, developing thicker coats to survive brutal winters. Populations in tropical islands became smaller, darker, adapted to dense jungle and heat. Populations in between took on intermediate characteristics. These subspecies were not separate species. A Siberian tiger and a Bengal tiger could still interbreed and produce viable offspring, but they had been separated long enough, adapted to different enough environments, that clear physical and genetic differences had accumulated. Scientists recognize 6 living subspecies: the Bengal tiger of India and surrounding countries, the Indo-Chinese tiger of mainland Southeast Asia, the Malayan tiger of the Malay Peninsula, the Siberian or Amur tiger of Russia and China, the South China tiger functionally extinct in the wild, and the Sumatran tiger of the Indonesian island. Each subspecies represents thousands of years of adaptation to specific environments. Each carries unique genetic variations not found in the others. Each is, in a sense, an irreplaceable evolutionary experiment, testing different solutions to the problem of being a tiger in a specific place. But 3 subspecies are already gone, lost within the last century, victims not of volcanic eruptions or ice ages, but of human activity. The Caspian tiger, which once ranged from Turkey through Central Asia to Western China, was hunted to extinction. The last confirmed individual was killed in the 1970s, though unconfirmed sightings persisted for years afterward, hope fading slowly into certainty of loss. The Javan tiger, smaller and adapted to the dense tropical forests of Java, vanished in the 1980s as its forest habitat was converted to agriculture and human settlement. The island could not support both a growing human population and a viable tiger population. The tigers lost. The Bali tiger, smallest of all subspecies, disappeared even earlier in the 1940s. The island of Bali is small, and the tiger population was never large. Hunting and habitat loss erased them within a few decades of intensive human pressure. 3 subspecies, 3 unique evolutionary lineages, 3 sets of adaptations and genetic variations that took thousands of years to develop, gone, not recoverable, not rebuildable. The genetic information they carried, the solutions they represented, erased from the living world. What remains in museums and research collections are skins and skulls and preserved tissues, material for genetic studies that reveal what was lost but cannot restore it. The Caspian tiger's DNA has been sequenced. We know now exactly how it differed from other subspecies. We can measure the genetic distance, quantify the loss, but we cannot bring it back. The extinction of subspecies is compounded by the catastrophic loss of range. Historically, tigers ranged from eastern Turkey across Asia to the Russian Far East, south through all of Southeast Asia, across India and into Indonesia. They occupied forests, grasslands, mangroves, river valleys, mountains up to 4,000 meters elevation. They were one of the most widely distributed large predators on Earth. Today, tigers occupy approximately 7% of their historic range. 93% has been lost, not slowly over geological time, but rapidly within the span of a single century. The maps of historic and current tiger range, when placed side by side, tell a story of contraction so severe it appears almost like a visual error. The historic range is vast, covering millions of square kilometers. The current range is a scattered archipelago of small, isolated patches, fragments of forest surrounded by human-dominated landscapes. This is not just loss of territory, it is loss of genetic connectivity. Tiger populations that were once part of a continuous distribution, able to exchange genes across hundreds of kilometers, are now isolated islands. A tiger in one forest fragment cannot reach a tiger in another fragment without crossing highways, cities, farmland. The populations become genetically isolated, unable to exchange genes, beginning their own slow descent into inbreeding and genetic bottlenecks. Each isolated population is a small, endangered subspecies within a subspecies. Each faces the same genetic risks that nearly destroyed the entire species after Toba. Low genetic diversity, inbreeding depression, reduced fitness, increased vulnerability to disease and environmental change. Scientists studying modern tiger populations find genetic bottlenecks everywhere. Not as severe as Toba, not yet, but narrowing nonetheless. Populations that once numbered in the thousands now number in the dozens or low hundreds. The genetic diversity is declining with each generation, variation being lost faster than mutation can replace it. Remarkably, despite these bottlenecks, tiger DNA remains cleaner than expected. The genome shows fewer harmful mutations than seen in other large carnivores with similar population histories. This may be because natural selection in wild populations is still strong enough to purge the worst genetic errors, or because the tiger's ancestral genome was particularly robust, or simply because we are catching the population in the early stages of genetic degradation before the worst effects manifest. This cleaner than expected DNA offers hope. It suggests that if populations can be stabilized and grown, if genetic connectivity can be restored through conservation corridors, the tiger has the genetic health to recover. The foundation is still there, not yet too degraded to build upon, but time is limited. With each passing generation in isolation, the genetic diversity declines further. Small populations are vulnerable to random catastrophes, disease outbreaks, natural disasters, or simple bad luck in reproduction where too many cubs happen to be the same sex. In Cambodia, we can see the endpoint of this trajectory. Tigers once thrived in Cambodia's forests, hunting among the ancient temples of Angkor, patrolling the dense jungles of the Cardamom Mountains. But hunting, habitat loss, and prey depletion gradually eroded the population. By the 1990s, tigers were rare. By the 2000s, they were critically endangered. Conservation efforts were attempted, but they came too late or with insufficient resources. The prey base had collapsed from illegal hunting. The forests were too small and too disturbed. The remaining tigers could not maintain viable reproduction. The last confirmed tiger in Cambodia was photographed by a camera trap in 2007. After that, nothing. Years of intensive surveys using camera traps, track searches, and local interviews found no evidence of living tigers. In 2016, Cambodia was declared locally extinct for tigers. The forests remain. The protected areas exist on paper. The prey populations are slowly recovering in some areas, but there are no tigers. The ecological niche is empty, the apex predator absent, the forest functioning but incomplete. Cambodia represents what can happen to all tiger populations if conservation fails. It is a preview of a world where tigers become functionally extinct across more and more of their range, surviving only in a handful of well-protected reserves, genetic islands, and a human ocean. But Cambodia's story is not finished. There are discussions of reintroduction, of bringing tigers from other populations to repopulate the Cambodian forests. It would be the first attempt to restore tigers to a country where they have been locally extirpated. Whether it succeeds remains to be seen. Time collapses. 70,000 years ago, Toba. 20,000 years ago, subspecies divergence. 100 years ago, 3 subspecies still existed that are now extinct. 20 years ago, tigers still lived in Cambodia. Today, 93% of the historic range is empty. The scale shifts, but the pattern holds. The tiger under pressure, the population contracting, genetic diversity narrowing, the future uncertain. And yet here we are. Tigers still exist. 6 subspecies, not 9, but 6. 7% of historic range, not 0%. Populations struggling, but in some places growing. Genetic bottlenecks present, but not yet catastrophic. Local extinctions occurring, but reintroduction possible. The story is not over. The tiger has survived worse than this. Toba nearly ended everything, and the tiger came back from that ancient brink. The species has endurance written into its genome, resilience tested across millennia. The question now is whether that resilience is enough, whether 7% of historic range can support a viable long-term population, whether isolated fragments can be reconnected before genetic diversity declines beyond recovery, whether humans, having caused 93% of the loss, can find the will to protect the remaining 7% and perhaps restore a fraction of what was destroyed. The tiger cannot answer these questions. It can only continue doing what it has done for 2 million years, hunting, patrolling, mating, raising cubs, adapting where possible, surviving where permitted. The answers rest with us, with the choices humans make about land use, about protected areas, about enforcement of anti-poaching laws, about whether we value a world with wild tigers or accept a world where they exist only in zoos and photographs and memories. As you settle into sleep, consider the weight of time. 70,000 years since Toba, 20,000 years of subspecies divergence, 2 million years since the first tigers. All of that history, all of that survival, all of that adaptation, concentrated now into scattered populations and fragments of forest. The past is vast, the present is small, the future is unwritten. The tiger waits, patient as stone, to see what we decide. Rest now, dream of ancient forests, dream of tigers walking through volcanic ash, surviving the unsurvivable. Dream of the future, where children still know what a tiger is, not from books and videos, but from the living world, from forests where tigers still hunt in the old ways. The deep time continues. The tiger endures within it, for now, for a little while longer. Sleep well. Tomorrow the work of conservation continues, and the tiger walks on, carrying 2 million years of history in its genes, hoping that history extends at least a little further into the future. We must now speak plainly about the human dimension of the tiger's story. Not with blame or guilt, but with clear-eyed recognition of what has happened and continues to happen. This is not about pointing fingers. This is about understanding the full picture, seeing the pressures that shape the tiger's present and will determine its future. Breathe steadily. These are difficult truths, but they are only truths. Knowledge without judgment, awareness without alarm. At the beginning of the 20th century, approximately 100,000 tigers walked the forests of Asia. This is a conservative estimate. Some scientists believe the number was higher, perhaps as many as 150,000, accounting for populations in remote areas that were never surveyed. Today, the global population of wild tigers is estimated at fewer than 4,000 individuals. Of those, only about 2,500 are breeding adults capable of producing the next generation. This is a 97% decline. In just over 1 century, in the span of 4 or 5 human generations, the tiger population has contracted to 3% of its historical size. 97%. Let that number settle into your awareness. Not 40% or 60%, but 97, nearly total, nearly complete. If this were a company's stock value or a nation's GDP, we would call it a catastrophic collapse. If this were a human population, we would speak of a profound and total loss. For tigers, we use clinical terms like population decline and endangered status, but the reality is stark. We came very close to losing tigers entirely from the wild. The causes are multiple and interconnected. Habitat loss as forests are converted to agriculture, logging, and development. Prey depletion from hunting that removes the animals tigers depend on. Direct killing of tigers through poaching for illegal trade, through conflict with humans protecting livestock, through trophy hunting that was legal for much of the 20th century. Each cause compounds the others. Habitat loss concentrates tigers into smaller areas, increasing competition and human-wildlife conflict. Prey depletion forces tigers to take livestock, triggering retaliatory killing. Poaching removes breeding adults, preventing population recovery, even in protected areas. The result is what we see today. 2,500 breeding tigers, scattered across 6 countries, and a handful of isolated populations, each facing its own combination of threats, each requiring active conservation intervention to avoid further decline. India has become the stronghold, holding approximately 70% of the world's remaining wild tigers. This is approximately 2,800 to 3,000 individuals. Though population estimates vary depending on survey methods and the year of census, India's success is not accidental. It reflects decades of conservation investment, the creation of protected reserves, anti-poaching patrols, community engagement programs, and political will at the highest levels of government. Project Tiger, launched in 1973, when India's tiger population had crashed to fewer than 2,000 individuals, created a network of reserves specifically designed for tiger conservation. The program worked. India's tiger population has grown steadily over the past 2 decades, recovering to numbers not seen since the mid-20th century. Tigers have recolonized areas where they had been locally extinct. New reserves have been created. Corridors connecting habitat fragments have been protected. But this concentration of tigers in one country creates vulnerability. India is carrying the weight of global tiger conservation almost alone. If disease, political instability, or policy changes undermine India's conservation programs, the impact on the global population would be catastrophic. And disease is a very real threat. Canine distemper virus, commonly abbreviated as CDV, is a pathogen that affects carnivores. It is closely related to the measles virus in humans and causes respiratory, gastrointestinal, and neurological symptoms. In domestic dogs, vaccination has made CDV largely controllable. In wild carnivore populations, it periodically causes devastating outbreaks. Tigers are susceptible to CDV. They can contract it from domestic dogs, from other wildlife species that serve as reservoir hosts, or from other infected tigers. Once infected, the mortality rate is high. There is no cure, only supportive care, which is impossible to provide to wild tigers. An outbreak of CDV in a concentrated tiger population could kill dozens or hundreds of individuals in a matter of months. In the Serengeti, CDV killed approximately 1/3 of the lion population during an outbreak in 1994. A similar outbreak in a tiger reserve could set conservation efforts back by decades. The risk is particularly acute in India's high-density tiger populations. When tigers are concentrated in relatively small reserves, disease can spread rapidly from individual to individual. The populations that have recovered most successfully may also be the most vulnerable to disease-driven collapse. This is the extinction risk mechanism for disease. A pathogen enters a concentrated population, spreads efficiently due to high density and frequent contact between individuals, kills a significant percentage of the population, and the population drops below viable levels, unable to recover even after the outbreak ends. For small populations, a single disease event can be terminal. Conservation managers are aware of this risk. Vaccination programs for domestic dogs in villages surrounding tiger reserves help create buffer zones. Monitoring for disease symptoms in wild tigers attempts to provide early warning. Plans exist for emergency intervention if outbreaks occur. But the fundamental vulnerability remains. Tigers concentrated in small areas are exposed to catastrophic disease risk in ways that widely distributed populations historically were not. Beyond disease, the illegal wildlife trade represents perhaps the most direct and persistent threat to tiger survival. The global illegal wildlife trade is valued at approximately $20 billion annually, making it one of the largest criminal enterprises in the world, comparable in scale to drug trafficking and arms dealing. Tigers are a premium product in this trade. Tiger bone is valued in traditional medicine systems, despite no scientific evidence of efficacy and the availability of alternatives. Tiger skin is prized for decoration and status display. Tiger parts, claws, teeth, organs are sold as curios and supposed medicinal ingredients. The demand is primarily in East and Southeast Asia, though markets exist globally. The prices are staggering. A single tiger carcass can be worth tens of thousands of dollars on the black market, more than many rural families earn in years of legitimate work. This creates powerful economic incentive for poaching. In regions where poverty is endemic and employment opportunities scarce, the temptation to kill a tiger for money that could feed a family for a year or more is intense. Poachers are often not professional criminals, but desperate people exploited by organized criminal networks that handle the actual trafficking and sales. Tiger farms, particularly in Southeast Asia, further complicate the situation. These facilities breed tigers in captivity, ostensibly for conservation or tourism, but evidence suggests many exist primarily to supply the illegal trade. Tigers are bred, raised to adulthood, and then killed on demand, their parts entering the same supply chains as wild poached tigers. These farms undermine conservation in multiple ways. They legitimize the trade in tiger parts by creating confusion about whether products come from farmed or wild animals. They keep demand high by ensuring supply continues regardless of wild population status. And they may actively launder wild-caught tigers, claiming poached animals were captive bred. Some farms hold thousands of tigers, far more than the entire wild population of some subspecies. The conditions are often poor, the animals kept in small cages, bred repeatedly, and disposed of when no longer profitable. It is industrial-scale exploitation dressed in conservation language. Efforts to shut down tiger farms face political and economic obstacles. The farms employ people, generate tourism revenue, and operate with government permits. Closing them requires confronting powerful economic interests and navigating complex legal frameworks. Meanwhile, they continue operating a parallel population of tigers, bred solely for the trade of their physical remains. The poachers themselves are often victims of the same system. Many are impoverished villagers recruited by middlemen who offer cash for tiger parts. The actual profits flow to criminal syndicates operating across international borders, but the legal consequences fall on the poachers, who face arrest, imprisonment, and sometimes extrajudicial killing by anti-poaching patrols. These are not excuses, but context. A subsistence farmer who kills a tiger to prevent livestock predation, or who poaches a tiger for money to pay medical bills, is making a choice shaped by desperation and limited alternatives. The middleman offering that money is exploiting poverty, turning economic vulnerability into a weapon against wildlife. Effective conservation must address these underlying conditions, providing alternative livelihoods, compensating livestock losses, creating economic incentives for communities to protect rather than exploit tigers. These approaches recognize that humans and tigers share landscapes, and that human welfare and tiger conservation are interconnected challenges. Some conservation programs have succeeded by hiring former poachers as wildlife guides and anti-poaching scouts, converting local knowledge of forests and wildlife into legal employment. Others have created community-based ecotourism, where villages receive direct income from tiger conservation, making living tigers more valuable than dead ones. These solutions are not perfect and do not work everywhere, but they represent recognition that conservation cannot succeed through enforcement alone. Fences and guards and arrests may slow poaching, but they do not address the economic pressures driving it. The human dimension of tiger conservation is complex, tangled in poverty and inequality, traditional practices and organized crime, government corruption and international politics. It would be easier if the problem were simple villains making clear moral choices, but the reality is thousands of small decisions made under pressure, systems of exploitation, market forces, and the collision of human needs with wildlife survival. This is not about assigning blame. Rural communities living near tigers did not create the global demand for tiger parts or the economic conditions that make poaching attractive. Urban consumers purchasing tiger products may be unaware of the conservation implications or may not care. Government officials may be corrupt, indifferent, or genuinely trying to balance competing pressures with inadequate resources. The system is broken in multiple ways simultaneously, and fixing it requires changes at every level: local, national, and international. Stronger law enforcement, yes, but also poverty reduction, education, alternative livelihoods, demand reduction campaigns, international cooperation on wildlife trafficking, and sustained political commitment over decades. India's success demonstrates that recovery is possible when these elements align. From fewer than 2,000 tigers in the early 1970s to approximately 3,000 today, the population has grown despite all the pressures described above. Protected areas work, anti-poaching works, community engagement works. The tiger responds to conservation when given the space and protection to do so. But the work is never finished. Every year brings new challenges: forests cleared for development projects, poaching networks adapting to enforcement, climate change altering habitats and prey distributions, human populations growing and requiring more land and resources. The 97% decline happened over 1 century. Reversing even a fraction of that loss will take generations of sustained effort. There are no quick fixes, no simple solutions, only the slow, difficult work of protecting habitat, reducing demand, addressing poverty, enforcing laws, and maintaining political will year after year after year. 2,500 breeding tigers, 70% concentrated in one country, disease threats looming, $20 billion in illegal wildlife trade creating relentless pressure, farms breeding tigers for killing, poachers caught between poverty and prison. These are the realities, not pleasant but real, not hopeless but difficult, but addressable through committed, coordinated action. The tiger's future depends on human choices, not in the abstract, but in specific decisions about land use, law enforcement, economic development, and international cooperation. The tiger cannot save itself from a 97% population decline. Only we can do that. And we are trying. Imperfectly, incompletely, with setbacks and failures, but trying nonetheless. India's tiger population grows, new reserves are created, poaching networks are dismantled, demand reduction campaigns reach millions, reintroduction programs bring tigers back to areas where they had vanished. The work continues, it must continue, because 2,500 breeding tigers is not enough for long-term survival, but it is enough to build from if we choose to build. Rest now with this knowledge. The situation is serious but not hopeless. The challenges are real but not insurmountable. Humans created this crisis, and humans can resolve it if we care enough to commit the resources and maintain the effort for as long as necessary. The tiger waits, patient in its remaining forests, asking nothing except the space to exist, to hunt, to raise cubs, to continue the ancient patterns that have sustained the species for 2 million years. Whether that space remains depends on us, on our choices, on our commitment, on our willingness to share the world with creatures that need room to roam and prey to hunt and forests to hide in. Sleep now. The tigers rest in their forest fragments. The conservation work continues in offices and field stations. The future remains unwritten, waiting for the choices we make tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. The awareness is here. The alarm is unnecessary. Only the quiet commitment to do better, to protect what remains, to restore what was lost where possible. We have walked a long path together through the tiger's world, from anatomy to cognition, from territory to family, from deep time to the present crisis. Now, as we near the end of this journey, let us speak of endings and beginnings, of death and survival, of the fragile hope that persists despite everything. Let yourself drift now. There is no need to hold on tightly to these final truths. Let them wash over you like gentle waves, each one carrying you closer to sleep. In the wild, a tiger's life is brief, 8 to 10 years on average, though some individuals live longer if they are fortunate, skilled, and strong. 15 years is old for a wild tiger. 18 is ancient. Beyond that, almost no wild tiger survives. Compare this to captivity, where tigers routinely live 20 to 25 years, sometimes even longer. The difference reveals the cost of wild existence. Every hunt carries injury risk. Every territorial dispute might end in death. Infections and parasites go untreated. Broken teeth and damaged paws reduce hunting efficiency, leading to starvation. The wild is beautiful, but merciless, and few tigers live long enough to die of old age. The primary causes of death in wild tigers are conflict with other tigers, starvation due to injury or old age, poaching, and human-wildlife conflict. Disease plays a role, but less than one might expect. The strong selective pressure of wildlife means that tigers susceptible to disease often do not survive to breeding age, and those that do typically have robust immune systems. Old tigers, unable to hunt effectively, sometimes starve slowly over months, growing weaker, attempting hunts they can no longer complete, until finally they lie down in dense cover and do not rise again. It is not a gentle death, but it is a quiet one, the tiger disappearing into the forest that was its entire world. Some old tigers, as we mentioned earlier, turn to easier prey in their final years. Livestock, domestic dogs, and occasionally humans become targets when wild prey is too difficult to catch. This often results in the tiger being killed by villagers or wildlife authorities, a violent end precipitated by the simple mathematics of hunger and failing strength. But not all endings are dark. Some tigers simply vanish from their territories, their scent marks fading, their presence no longer detected on camera traps or by neighboring tigers. They die somewhere hidden, and the forest reclaims them, bones scattered by scavengers, returning to the soil that supported the prey that fed the tiger throughout its life. The cycle completes. Yet even as individual tigers face these inevitable endings, new threats emerge that could affect entire populations. Climate change is reshaping the landscapes tigers depend on, and nowhere is this more visible than in the Sundarbans. The Sundarbans is a vast mangrove forest spanning the delta where the Ganges, Brahmaputra, and Meghna rivers meet the Bay of Bengal. It is shared between India and Bangladesh and holds one of the world's most unique tiger populations. Tigers that have adapted to life in a watery labyrinth of tidal channels, swimming between islands, hunting deer and wild boar in forests that flood twice daily with the tide. Approximately 100 to 200 tigers live in the Sundarbans, perhaps 4 to 5% of the global population. But their entire habitat is vulnerable to sea level rise driven by climate change. Current projections suggest that sea levels in the Bay of Bengal could rise by 1 to 2 meters by the end of this century. Much of the Sundarbans is barely above current sea level. Even a rise of half a meter would inundate significant portions of the mangrove forest, converting tiger habitat to open water. The tigers cannot simply move inland. Human settlements surround the Sundarbans on all sides. Agriculture has claimed all the land not protected as forest reserve. There is nowhere for the tigers to go. Models predict that 70 to 90% of current Sundarbans tiger habitat could be lost to sea level rise within the next 50 to 80 years. This would force the population into an ever-shrinking area, increasing density beyond sustainable levels, intensifying human-wildlife conflict as tigers desperately seek food and territory. The Sundarbans tigers represent a unique adaptation, the only coastal dwelling tigers, the only population that swims as a regular part of their ecology. Losing them would erase this variation from the species, narrowing the tiger's ecological breadth and reducing its evolutionary potential. Climate change affects tigers elsewhere too, though less dramatically. Shifting rainfall patterns alter forest composition and prey distributions. Increased frequency of droughts and floods disrupts breeding cycles. Rising temperatures push prey animals to higher elevations or different latitudes, forcing tigers to follow or face starvation. These changes happen gradually, across decades, easy to ignore in the day-to-day work of conservation. But they accumulate, reshaping the landscape in ways that make it harder for tigers to survive even in protected areas. Despite these challenges, one fact provides crucial context. Bengal tigers represent approximately half of all wild tigers. The subspecies that includes the populations in India, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Bhutan accounts for roughly 2,000 of the 4,000 wild tigers globally. This concentration is both strength and vulnerability. It means conservation successes in India directly impact global tiger numbers. India's tiger population has grown, and therefore the global population has grown. But it also means that catastrophic losses in India, from disease, poaching, or policy changes, would devastate the species as a whole. The Bengal tiger carries the weight of its species' survival disproportionately. The other subspecies, Siberian, Indo-Chinese, Malayan, Sumatran, each number in the hundreds or low thousands. None individually has the population size or growth trajectory of the Bengal tiger. This is why India's conservation programs matter so profoundly. They are not just protecting one country's tigers, they are maintaining the demographic core of the entire species, the population that could potentially replenish other areas if connectivity is restored and habitats are secured. There is an odd mirror to consider here: the captive tiger population. Worldwide, approximately 10,000 to 20,000 tigers live in captivity. Exact numbers are difficult to determine because many facilities do not report their holdings accurately, and private ownership of tigers is legal in some jurisdictions with minimal oversight. The captive population vastly outnumbers the wild population. There are perhaps 5 times as many tigers in cages as in forests. This is not a success. These captive tigers do not contribute to wild population recovery, do not fulfill ecological roles, do not represent functional conservation. Many are kept in roadside zoos, private collections, or breeding facilities under poor conditions. Many are inbred or hybridized, their genetics compromised, unsuitable for reintroduction even if that were logistically possible. Many exist solely as commercial assets, bred for profit, discarded when no longer valuable. But some captive populations serve legitimate conservation purposes. Zoological institutions maintain genetically managed populations as insurance against wild extinction, conduct research that informs field conservation, and provide educational opportunities that build public support for tiger protection. The tension is this: we have successfully bred tigers in captivity to enormous numbers, proving the species is biologically capable of rapid population growth. Yet we have failed to provide enough wild habitat to support even a fraction of that reproductive potential. The problem is not the tiger's ability to breed. The problem is our willingness to preserve space for them to exist. Yet, and this is important, the global wild tiger population is increasing. Not everywhere, not consistently, but the overall trend is upward. From a low of approximately 3,200 tigers in 2010, the population has grown to approximately 4,000 today. This is the first sustained increase in wild tiger numbers in over a century. It is a reversal of the long decline, a turning point achieved through intensive conservation effort across multiple countries. The increase is concentrated in India, but also visible in Russia, Nepal, Bhutan, and China. New protected areas have been created. Anti-poaching enforcement has intensified. Community-based conservation has reduced human-wildlife conflict. Prey populations have recovered in some areas, supporting larger tiger populations. This growth is conservation success made tangible. Every additional breeding pair represents lives saved, habitat protected, prey population sustained. The increase is modest, 800 tigers over 14 years, but the direction matters. After decades of decline, the population is growing. Specific conservation successes illuminate what is possible. In Nepal, the tiger population has roughly doubled since 2010, from approximately 121 tigers to around 250, achieved through aggressive anti-poaching, habitat restoration, and community engagement. In Russia's Far East, Siberian tiger numbers have stabilized and slightly increased after decades of decline, now estimated at approximately 550 to 600 individuals. This recovery required international cooperation, anti-poaching patrols, prey augmentation, and conflict mitigation programs spanning years of consistent effort. In India's Panna Tiger Reserve, the entire tiger population was lost to poaching by 2009. The reserve declared empty. Conservation authorities launched a reintroduction program, translocating tigers from other reserves. Today, Panna holds approximately 50 tigers, a functional population that has bred successfully and recolonized the reserve. This is one of several reintroduction victories demonstrating that tigers, given protection and adequate prey, will establish territories, breed, and create viable populations in areas where they had been extirpated. Another example, Sariska Tiger Reserve, also in India, lost all its tigers to poaching in the early 2000s. Reintroduction began in 2008. The population has grown to approximately 20 tigers, still vulnerable but functional, proving the habitat can support tigers if they are protected. These victories are hard-won and fragile. They require sustained funding, political will, community cooperation, and years of patient effort. But they demonstrate that recovery is possible, that the trajectory can be reversed, that tigers can return to places where they had vanished. As we drift toward the end of this long night of tiger knowledge, let us turn to something more subtle, the role of personality in tiger survival. Research on wild tigers has revealed that individuals differ significantly in behavior, risk-taking, and social tolerance. These are not random variations, but consistent personality traits that affect survival and reproduction. 2 traits in particular have been studied: majesty and steadiness. These are not official scientific terms, but describe observed behavioral patterns. Majesty refers to bold, confident tigers that patrol openly, scent mark frequently, and engage in territorial displays. These tigers are visible, assertive, and dominant in their ranges. They tend to hold prime territories and have high reproductive success. But they also face higher mortality from conflict and human encounter because their boldness brings them into dangerous situations. Steadiness refers to cautious, methodical tigers that avoid unnecessary risk, patrol less conspicuously, and minimize conflict. These tigers may hold marginal territories and have lower reproductive rates, but they also live longer on average because they avoid the dangers that kill bolder tigers. Neither strategy is universally superior. In stable, protected environments with low human pressure, majesty may be advantageous, allowing tigers to claim and defend the best territories. In fragmented landscapes with high human presence, steadiness may promote survival, allowing tigers to persist in marginal habitats by avoiding detection and conflict. The diversity of personalities within tiger populations represents adaptive flexibility. Some individuals thrive through dominance and visibility, others survive through caution and subtlety. The population benefits from both strategies, able to respond to varying environmental conditions with different behavioral approaches. This reminds us that tigers are not interchangeable units in a population count. Each is an individual with distinct behaviors, preferences, and life histories. Conservation that recognizes this individuality, that accommodates the bold and the cautious, the dominant and the marginal, protects not just numbers but the full behavioral diversity that makes populations resilient. Finally, as sleep draws very near, consider the tiger's place in human culture. Across Asia for thousands of years, the tiger has been revered as a spiritual symbol. In Hindu tradition, the goddess Durga rides a tiger, representing power and protection. The tiger is Vahana, the divine vehicle, chosen for its strength and majesty. In Chinese culture, the tiger is one of the 12 zodiac animals and represents courage, confidence, and competitiveness. The white tiger is one of the 4 celestial animals, associated with autumn in the west, a guardian spirit. In Korean folklore, tigers are protectors of the land, appearing in foundation myths and serving as symbols of national identity. The tiger represents strength, courage, and guardianship. In Southeast Asian traditions, tigers are often seen as spirits of the forest, reincarnations of ancestors, or shapeshifters moving between human and animal forms. They are respected, feared, and revered simultaneously. This cultural significance means the tiger is not just an ecological entity, but a symbolic one. Its survival matters not only for biodiversity and ecosystem function, but for cultural continuity and spiritual connection. For many communities, a world without wild tigers is a world diminished in ways beyond the material. Conservation efforts that engage with this cultural reverence, that respect traditional relationships between humans and tigers, that recognize the tiger as more than biological organism, but also cultural icon, tend to be more successful than purely technical approaches. The tiger walks through human imagination as surely as it walks through forests. It appears in art, literature, religion, national symbols, and personal identity. Protecting tigers means protecting this cultural heritage, maintaining the living presence that gives depth and meaning to thousands of years of symbolic representation. And so we arrive at the quiet afterward. The facts have been presented, the challenges acknowledged, the hopes cautiously expressed. Wild tigers live brief lives, 8 to 10 years on average, facing death from conflict, starvation, poaching, and the simple wearing down of their bodies through relentless effort. Climate change threatens entire populations, particularly in the Sundarbans, where sea level rise could erase 70 to 90% of habitat within decades. But Bengal tigers represent half the species, and their numbers are growing. The global population has increased from approximately 3,200 to 4,000 over the past 14 years. Conservation successes in Nepal, Russia, and India demonstrate that recovery is possible. Reintroduction programs have restored tigers to reserves where they had been extirpated. Individual tigers display distinct personalities, some bold and majestic, others cautious and steady, and this diversity strengthens the species' resilience. And across Asia, cultural reverence for tigers provides social foundation for conservation efforts. connecting biodiversity protection to spiritual and cultural continuity. The situation is serious but not hopeless, fragile but not broken, challenging but not impossible. The tiger endures in its forest fragments. Conservation continues in field stations and government offices. The future remains unwritten, dependent on choices not yet made, on commitment not yet proven, on hope not yet abandoned. As you drift into sleep, let these thoughts settle and fade. The tiger walks on through the night, as it has for 2 million years. Tomorrow it will hunt. Tomorrow it will patrol its territory. Tomorrow it will do what tigers do, seeking only the space to exist and the prey to sustain that existence. We have told the tiger's story tonight, from whisker to genome, from birth to death, from ancient past to uncertain future. The story is not over. New chapters are being written in the forests even now, by tigers that know nothing of statistics and conservation strategies, that live each day according to patterns older than civilization. They hunt, they rest, they raise cubs, they mark boundaries, they endure. And in their endurance there is something worthy of our attention, our respect, our commitment to ensuring the story continues a while longer. Rest now. The telling is complete. The tiger walks on without need of our witness, but we are better for having witnessed, for having understood, for having recognized the complexity and beauty and fragility of this magnificent creature's existence. Sleep comes easily now, drifting on tiger stripes and forest shadows, on the quiet knowledge that somewhere in the darkness, a tiger is alive, walking its territory under stars, continuing the ancient pattern, carrying the future in its genes and the past in its bones. And so might we, together, find the will to ensure it endures a little longer. Our journey through the amber eyes of the tiger is complete. Rest now in the silence we have found together. We will meet again in another corner of the natural world. If this stillness brought you peace tonight, and you would like to join our future explorations, you are always welcome here. But for now, let the world fade away